Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Pika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Ash Possess Wild Rare Pokemon? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. There was blue for miles. The soft trickles of waves speeding past his vision as they arrived closer and closer to his destination. Ash admitted that this was the last possible thing on his mind at the moment. After Kalos, after the tower, after Serena and Greninja, he needed a break. He craved to be alone, with all his Pokemon to ground him to reality. If they had just let him camp with his Pokemon for a month or so, he'd be fine. So how had he ended up in the situation? Ash let out a heavy sigh, shimmying in his seat to get comfortable, careful not to jostle his two Pokemon very much. He let out an unthoughtful hum, absently brushing his finger through brown fur. He was only doing this for Professor Oak and his mother, just so they knew he was going to be alright. And that he was getting some helpful experience with children. Yeah, right. How was being a teacher's pet going to be of any use to him? He'd be stuck in a closed-off classroom with Pikachu forced to stay at their temporary home while he dealt with stuck-up children filled to the brim with entitlement. Maybe he was being a bit mean and heavily biased, but Ash had never met any student who wasn't stuck up in the beginning. It would be a great opportunity to learn about the Pokemon of the Alolan region. Maybe he could even convince someone to teach him the standard language of Alola. He doubted everyone there was going to be able to understand Cantonese. There was a jostle in the plain, people and small Pokemon grumbling as the lights slowly lit up. His two Pokemon, Pikachu and Eevee, let out hisses of annoyance, burying their faces into the comfort of his shirt. Brats, he muttered in amusement, rubbing their backs gently. Well, time to see the Alola region. The plane landed smoothly enough, yet he was forced to wait as people scrambled to get out of the flying machine. He patiently waited before getting out of his lane, opening up his compartment and dragging out the single suitcase he had. He gave it a week tops. By the time he exited the plane, mostly everyone had dispersed already, which he found to be a blessing in disguise. Today he would get to rest and tomorrow he would have to go to the school to be formally introduced. Ignoring his impending responsibilities, he casually walked out of the airport, glancing around and heading to the direction he knew the hotel was going to be at. Well, that he was following the other tourists who had mentioned a hotel? He slowed to a stop and stared out onto the beach, smiling as he saw some kids with Pokemon he had never seen before. The island was surprisingly peaceful compared to other places. And with a chill down his spine, Ash knew he effed up somehow. Satoshi. Ash turned quickly to look at Pikachu, who was standing in the sand looking at a sand castle. Someone left their shovel here, can I have it? No, Pikachu, they probably left it behind to go into the water, you can't have it. Ash sighed, raising an eyebrow at Pikachu. The mouse huffed, pouting as he kicked some sand at the shovel. Mom would let me have it. No, she would not. Ash scolded quickly, earning a giggle from the Eevee in his pocket. Pikachu turned his back from the shovel to glare at him, a pout already forming on his lower lip. Suddenly the small mound of sand grew eyes, piercing red before it let out a yell. Pikachu jumped back in shock, Ash mimicking his movements. There wasn't time to process much as the earth shattered around Pikachu, a blanket of steam throwing him and sand upward and launching him into the air. Pikapi! Pikachu screamed, waving in shock before he was blindsided by a shadow ball. Ash watched in shock as his best friend, his brother in all but blood, was launched across the island. Son of a rainbow sherbet. He groaned, eyes screwing in shock. He turned to the little Pokemon in the sand who was glancing at Pikachu's direction in mild confusion. I had to jinx myself. He groaned, looking at the odd Pokemon who was now staring at him. Do you know any Pokemon nearby that can fly? I'm hoping they can help out. The little Pokemon gurgled, looking towards the trees lining the forest. There is a toucan that may help you out, but I can't be sure if she'll do it. The Pokemon wiggled as if shrugging. For all it's worth, sorry about your friend, I've never thrown a shadow ball so hard it threw someone across the island. With a heavy sigh he waved off the Pokemon's apology, an uneasy smile on his face. No, don't worry too much about it. We have our difficulties every region, and I'm sure he was asking for it joking like that. He let his Eevee onto his shoulder, where the runt Pokemon quickly scrambled underneath his hat. Thank you for the help. With a backwards wave he sprinted towards the direction where Pikachu flew. Big brother is an idiot. Eevee's muffled voice crooned. Doesn't he ever learn his lesson? I think Pikachu and I have a big idiot disease, cause the answer to that is a big old no. Ash huffed back, earning a soft laugh from the normal type. This was already shaping up to be a long vacation. When Pikachu crashed, he expected many things. Pain for one, and the unending anger for letting a baby do this to him. And hate, special hate for Arceus cause the dumbass god probably did this to him for calling them a dumbass last week. He got up groggily, shaking his head. His body wasn't in that much pain if he was honest. The worst was his tail which took the brunt of his fall. Pikachu immediately glanced around, glaring at the objects that moved. He was in a decently lit place, which meant he hadn't fallen into a crevice, and the light shining meant he was still relatively outside and not in a home of some sorts. But there were bags and knickknacks, too different to be outside but still fairly uniform. Then he heard it. Whispering. What was that? Was that a Pokemon? Was it an attack? Is it okay? Alright class, a strong male voice rang out, causing Pikachu to tense. Settle down, everyone stay in your seats, I'll check it out. He let a small burst of electricity build up in his cheeks. Ash would be more than disappointed if he shocked anyone unconscious. Pikachu carefully watched as a green hat began to appear, tail kept low for the sake of keeping a small advantage. Warm, comforting brown eyes met his own. They were rather similar to Ash's in a way that held both strength and openness. They were still very different from his Satoshi's. A Pikachu. The man hummed, giving him a gentle smile. I don't know how you got here, but let's take you outside, is that all right with you? And that's all it took for the mouse to readily agree. The human radiated warmth, not as comforting as Satoshi, but no one could ever beat Satoshi on that. He motioned his head back and let the man fall back, quirking a brow at the lab coat and that fact the man had no shirt. Pikachu was sure the man was a native, but that was a bit odd. He crawled down the ladder, keeping his tail leveled as to not irritate the bruise forming on the base of his tail. He watched as the man walked to an open part of the room, easing off the ladder and onto the floor. A quick glance at his surroundings told him that he was in a classroom. Without even crawling forward, he could see the fauna outside with flying types peeking out the trees. Making a quick decision, he hopped on top of the desk in front of the children and laid down, letting out a yawn as he curled on the corner of the desk. He could almost see the confusion on the man's face. Maybe it wants to be caught by you, Professor. A small voice rang out, his ear twitched in irritation at the noise. Maybe so. Pikachu could hear the Pokeball enlarge, having heard that noise time and time again from his own trainer. He waited to hear the ball whistle as it sailed towards him. Without opening his eyes, he curled his tail forward, grimacing slightly at the strain before he pet it quickly to the side, slapping the ball towards the first voice's direction. There was a yelp and he snuggled deeper in satisfaction. Now all he had to do was wait. Ash grumbled, glaring at the native who collapsed to the floor in disbelief. Why did trainers still believe in the "our eyes have met we must battle" GG? He swore that one show was going to be the death of him. He walked past other trainers and straight into the forest, glancing around to look for someone to help him out. Almost instantly, he saw a little berry move around, green petals swirling. That had to have been a Pokemon. He crouched low, Eevee leaning forward on his shoulder to look at the unknown Pokemon. He gave the little Pokemon a poke, the berry-like creature jumping up with a shrill and turning around with its face puffed up angrily. Hello, sorry about that. Ash apologized quickly. I was wondering if you could help me find someone called Toucanon? A Pokemon on the beach told me I could find her here. The Pokemon gave him a blank stare, before sighing and began to exaggerate its movements dramatically. She is over there. It's she? Announced loudly and slowly, extending their leaves towards the left. Why do you need her? The Pokemon scoffed, almost as if wondering why they even asked the second question. I need the help of a flying type to find my partner. Ash answered easily. You see, a Pokemon on the beach with a shovel on its head accidentally blew him across island. I was hoping that she could help me look from up above. The Pokemon blinked, leaves dropping. You heard me? Yeah. Ash grinned sheepishly. I tend to forget most Pokemon aren't used to me understanding them. But if you mind, could you lead me to Toucanon? I'd follow your directions, but I have a very poor sense of direction. Eevee gasped on his shoulder, eyes widened dramatically. You finally admit that you can't find your way out of a bathroom? The Eevee turned his face towards the sky, anime tears falling down his face. Papa was right. I'll only admit it to you guys, not my companion so dash. He jabbed a finger at the normal type stomach, earning a squeal of delight. Shut. He turned back to the berry Pokemon, who glanced curiously at Eevee. I'll help, the Pokemon nodded. I'm afraid it'll be pretty slow cause I'm very short. If you'd like I could carry you? Ash crouched with a smile. I don't mean to be pushy, but I do want to find my partner soon. The Pokemon turned its head before nodding very slowly. With the confirmation, Ash reached over, gripping the small Pokemon on its underside and let them crawl on his free shoulder. Lead the way, a dash. He paused, flustered at the fact the Pokemon was still unknown to him. Bounsweet. Bounsweet smiled. And you two are? I'm Eevee. The name's Ash, it's nice to meet you, Bounsweet. The berry Pokemon grinned, leaves swirling in satisfaction. Likewise. With a determined look on their face they quickly pointed left once more. Alright Ash, let's go left. Without a doubt in his mind, he quickly followed the Bounsweet's direction, leading into a deeper part of the forest. Finally they arrived onto a nest-like area. The nesting grounds were relatively close to the ground, however, it seemed as if the trees were made so you could crawl towards the area. He saw plenty of tiny bird-like Pokemon peek at him, round baby eyes staring at him curiously. Another bird Pokemon, much taller and slightly larger than the babies appeared, puffing out its chest in a show of dominance. Why are you here? She shrieked loudly. Leave at once, I will not allow you to catch my brethren. Ash smiled and waved, easing the two Pokemon on his shoulder. As much as I would like to capture a Pokemon, I'm not exactly here for that. The smile on his face dropped into a worried frown, his eyebrows creasing slightly. I was wondering if I could get the help of someone named Toucanon, a Pokemon on the beach. A Sandygast. Bounsweet piped up quickly. Thank you, a Sandygast on the beach told me that if I need help I could try to ask Toucanon for help. And why would you need my help? Ash started at the pleasantly elegant and deep voice echoes around the forest. A large Pokemon with a big beak appeared, small eyes glaring at him. Ash didn't let the look bother him as nodded at her. Well, you see, the Sandygast had actually blown my Pikachu across the island on accident. Pikachu was bugging him without knowing and Sandygast reacted. Ash shrugged. I know the general way he went, but it'd be great to have some aerial support as well. I'd get my Pokemon to help out, but they're all back in Kanto where it's currently 1 in the morning. The Toucanon raised her brows, flying down to level him a look. If he is yours, why did you not simply return him to his confinement sphere? She rounded around him, keeping her stare. Never, Ash responded seriously, he absolutely hates his Pokeball and I refuse to put him in there so long as he continues to be uncomfortable in it. And my help is strictly aerial support? She stopped in front of him, puffing out her chest similar to the other bird earlier. You will not catch me nor my young while I help you? Never will. I ever. Ash nodded his head, startling the large bird. I love Pokemon, and I would love to have a new team in this region, but I will not capture any of you without your consent. I want your help, I do not want to capture you at this point in time. But you will eventually. With your consent I might try further down the line, but at the moment no. If you do not want to come with me, I will not bother trying. His serious look fell a little desperate. Please, I just need help finding my friend. You are awfully noble for one so young. Toucanon preened, a warm feeling flicking her chest. I'm not that young. Ash shrugged with a smile. I'm currently 18 turning 19 soon. Tiny. Toucanon smugly crooned out, before turning to her young with a chirp. Come along, loves, Trumbeak, be a dear and watch the young. You got it, ma'am. Trumbeak saluted. The older of the baby Pokemon proceeded to fly down, already circling above Ash's head. Toucanon turned to Ash, spreading her wings and flying at eye level. We will help, please lead the way and tell us everything you know. Ash grinned, nodding his head. Follow me, I'll show you which direction he flew once we get closer to the beach. He turned to Bounsweet. Would you like to come with or would you rather stay here? She is not yours? I'd like to stay a while longer if you don't mind. The two Pokemon stared at each other, Bounsweet growling slightly. They. Without another thought, Toucanon nodded her head at the small berry Pokemon. They, she confirmed. Ash paused, glancing at the two Pokemon before turning to run out of the forest. Come on, this way. No, you need to go right to leave the forest. I meant this way. Both wild Pokemon gave the trainer a fond look, before trading glances at each other. What an odd trainer he was. He was done with waiting, where the F was Ash. If you touch me one more time I will slaughter you. Pikachu hissed at the small round boy. Sophocles, please stop harassing the Pikachu. The man, a professor according to the children, sighed. But professor. The ginger boy whined. You never see a Pikachu like this around, they're all so shy. It's surprising to see one around humans and be comfortable enough to sleep. And look at its tail. It doesn't have a flat or a heart-shaped edge, it's curved. May I remind you that Pikachus, and electric types in general, can and will electrocute you once their patience has run thin. The professor raised an eyebrow at him. You think I'm just gonna electrocute him? Professor my butt, go back to school yourself, I'm gonna push him around until he learns to not FING touch, put that hand away you brat. Pikachu swiveled, snapping his teeth at the boy's hand. Sophocles let out a yelp, falling back to the group of students huddled around him. The group of 5 leaned farther back, the light blonde girl giving a shrill of fear. And that is reason number 1, you never touch a wild mon. The professor lifted his glasses to pinch the bridge of his nose. One of the reasons I haven't grabbed onto it myself. For all we know, it's trying to claim its territory here, or it's waiting for us to leave so we don't follow it back to its actual home. Pikachu are social Pokemon, they are often in packs. Grabbing one without its permission can lead a pack here to protect it. Okay, maybe the professor didn't need to go back to school, he was rather smart. But he couldn't understand Pikachu, and Pikachu was spoiled because his brother understood him just fine. He pouted, ears falling back. Where was Satoshi anyway? Maybe he can't find him because he's not on the balcony? That's ridiculous, Satoshi could feel his soul. A comforting warm feeling wiggled across his chest. There was a tinge of worry before it relaxed around his body, almost like an internal hug. And like that, Pikachu let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Satoshi found him. Hey, Pikachu looks calmer, the green-haired girl called. He twitched before turning to face the students. He gave them a nod, sitting up to stare outside. It can probably feel the electricity from its pack, it's providing it comfort. Well, you weren't wrong, Professor. He tilted his head up, hearing the flap of wings as a small bird rested on the balcony. It wasn't one Pikachu himself recognized. Hey look, a Pikapek, one of the girls whispered in awe. Are you Pikachu Ketchum? The small bird chirped at Pikachu. Pikachu couldn't help but feel the smug warmth that curled in his chest. He hadn't heard anyone call him his full name in so long. That's me. Pikachu grinned. Is Satoshi here? The bird tilted its head but nodded. I don't know about a Satoshi, but Ash is looking for you. The bird turned and screamed. Mama, I found Pikachu Ketchum. I think the other Pikachus found Pikachu and asked Pikapek for help. The blonde girl in white gasped. How amazing. Pikachu rolled his eyes, staring in anticipation. He heard yelps of shock when he saw a larger bird appear from nowhere. From the corner of his eye he watched the children and professor move towards the back of the class, farthest from the balcony, with the professor blocking the children with his body. What a good professor. He didn't have time to really say anything when he saw his Satoshi hop over the balcony, standing tall with an unknown Pokemon and Eevee on his shoulders. Satoshi, he screamed, slamming into Ash's chest and sobbing dramatically. You finally saved me, they were gonna dissect me. How dare you take so long? He continued to fake cry as he clung to Ash, who simply laughed and held him tight. It's nice to see you too, buddy. Ash grinned, rubbing his head affectionately. I'm glad you're safe. My tail hurts so I'm not safe. He stuck his tongue out childishly. By the way, Dash, he glanced at the big bird and the berry on Ash's side. Who are they? Oh, he cradled Pikachu with his left arm, careful to avoid his still sensitive tail. This is Toucanon and Bounsweet, they helped me find you. The little birds are Pikapek and this lil guy is Rowlet. He pulled down his zipper to show the small sleeping flying type. They're Toucanon's young. Pikachu gave them all a look, smiling at them while giving a half bow. Thanks so much for helping my idiot find me. Pikachu grinned. I hope it wasn't too much of a bother. The Toucanon waved a wing. It wasn't an issue at all. She turned to Ash and nuzzled her beak against his hair. I'm glad I could help, just please remind Rowlet to come home tonight. Ash giggled, rubbing the side of her beak. Affectionately. I will, fly home safe. With a call to her young, the tall Pokemon and her young flew off, nearly a dozen of them flying back towards the forest. The Rowlet, a round and plump bird, crooned a soft goodbye before snuggling deeper into Ash's jacket. Hello? Ash perked up, noting an adult and a couple of kids slowly crawling up to him. Is that your Pikachu? Ash nodded, rubbing Pikachu's head affectionately, who crooned back in delight. Yes sir, sorry about the chaos Pikachu caused. He was launched across the island by a Sandygast. He smiled at the annoyed cry. I'm sorry for scaring you all, I didn't really think when I heard Pikachu was in here. The man nodded, straightening out his jacket. That's a decent repertoire of Pokemon you have. The professor noted, shooting a look at his students. That Toucanon of yours looked especially strong. Ash and all the Pokemon at his side blinked. He couldn't blame the man for giving the kids that look. It was kinda odd he appeared out of nowhere for a Pikachu, but... Oh, the only Pokemon that are mine are Pikachu and Eevee. Ash smiled. This Rowlet and Bounsweet are wild, and Toucanon only helped me out to find Pikachu. She's really cool and strong, but she isn't mine. The man looked stumped, eyes going wide as the kids gasped in surprise. Ash, he's a professor and that's his class. Pikachu looked at him. I think we interrupted their class. Who are you? A dark-skinned boy nearly yelled, already falling into a fighting stance. Oh, sorry about that. Ash bowed, keeping sure that the Pokemon him didn't fall. My name is Ash Ketchum. These are my partners Pikachu and Eevee, and these are some friends I made, Bounsweet and Rowlet. The four Pokemon chorused out happily, Pikachu giving the students a smug look. The look was noticed by Ash, who placed a hand over Pikachu's face. Pika. Don't mind him too much, he's being a brat. Ash grinned. Ash Ketchum? The professor looked at him with eyebrows scrunched. As in, Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town? The Ash Ketchum Professor Oak recommended? Ash glanced in the professor's direction. Yeah, that's me. He tilted his head. Is everything all right, Professor? You know the professor, the green-haired girl blinked in shock. Not really. Ash shrugged, motioning to Pikachu, who shoved his hand off his face. Pikachu told me. Oh Tapu. The professor rubbed his face in disbelief, before waving one hand towards Ash's general direction. Class, this is Ash Ketchum. He's going to be my assistant this year. Ash blinked in surprise, his eyebrows shooting past his hairline. What luck. Arceus did this. Pikachu glared at him. There is no other Mon who could. I agree, Ash breathed as the kids gathered around him. I'm gonna kick them next time I see them. How old are you anyway? The short round boy looked at him. You don't look like you could be a teacher's assistant. A student, yeah, but not someone old enough to help. Pikachu shrieked in glee as Ash deflated on himself. I'm 18 turning 19. He grumbled unhappily, rubbing the stubble on his chin. His hair was dark. Arceus, damn it, why couldn't anyone see it? You look young despite being older. Everyone turned to stare at the blue-haired girl who was looking intensely at Ash. You can talk to Pokemon, and wild Pokemon seem to trust you immensely. You have 2 loyal adorable Pokemon and you're working under someone much older. Ash raised a brow as the dark-skinned boy looked at her in equal confusion. Lana Dash, her name was Lana? What are you talking about? Lana looked up with a mischievous sparkle in her eye. Don't you guys see? She threw her hands up in excitement, smiling widely. We have a real Disney princess as our teacher's assistant. Ojo? Ash wondered aloud, looking at the blue Lana, curiously. Watashi wa oku no mano to yoba ridi kimashita. Purin sisu wa karara no hideride wa arimasen deshita. The professor looked up, ignoring the kids who suddenly clambered in front of Ash. You're a foreigner. Lana called out in excitement. A foreign princess, oh wow. Ignore her, she's being a weirdo. The green-haired girl chuckled nervously, pushing Lana away by her face. My name's Mallow, it's nice to meet you. Pikachu sniffed curiously at her hand, ignoring the tense looks the students were giving him. Ash watched with an amused look, quirking a brow at the Pikachu. She smells like skis, like when Takashi cooks. He purred, shoving her hand away with a push. She's a chef. It's nice to meet you, Mallow. Ash hefted Pikachu onto his head, ignoring the mouse's look of obvious betrayal. Like I said before, my name's Ash. She gave him a smile and waved towards the other kids. Out of the 3 of them, the girl ducked almost immediately. The 2 boys waved, the smaller one immediately looking off to the side. This is Sophocles. Mallow gave the smaller of the 2 a rough pat, causing him to stumble forward in shock. This is Kiawe. The darker-skinned boy shook Ash's hand firmly, and Ash had to smile. Mallow walked around Kiawe and gripped the blonde by her shoulder. She leaned in close to the blonde's face. The 2 broke out into small smiles and blushes. And this is Lily. She quickly looked down. It's nice to meet you. She squeaked out, gently shaking his hand. Ash smiled and leaned back. It's nice to meet you all, I guess we'll be seeing each other around more often. The 4 Pokemon currently crawling on him let out cheers, ignoring Ash's raised brow considering he only really owned 2 of them. He glanced at Kukui and raised his hand. The professor turned him with a confused look. I'm really sorry for interrupting, but I should get going. He pointed vaguely towards the skyline. I still need to head to my hotel, and I should get these guys. He waved at the roulette in his jacket and the bounce-suite on his shoulder, back home before it gets too dark out. The professor gave him a nod, bobbing his head and motioning towards the door. Let me lead you out. Before Ash could interject, Kukui turned to his students. Class, turn to page 182 in your textbooks and answer the questions on the pages. I'll be back shortly. Other than tired groans from the students, they listened begrudgingly well. Ash wasn't going to believe for a second that this wasn't a ploy, but for now he'll give the group the benefit of the doubt. Without hesitation he fell into step with the professor, walking out of the classroom and into the hallway. Go many. Ash rubbed his face awkwardly. I can't stress that enough. I really didn't mean to interrupt your class. The professor shook his head, giving him a kind smile. Not at all, I have to say, it's a shock to see a tourist warm up to our native Pokemon so easily. We don't get that too often. He began to lead them downstairs. But I do have to say, that was one hell of an introduction. Just try not to be so extravagant tomorrow? Okay? Ash snorted, rubbing the side of his face. That's the understatement of the century. I doubt I could top that intro. They reached the front door, Ash bowing once more and thanking the professor. "I'll see you tomorrow," he hollered. The 5 of them began to walk around, heading towards the hotel which Bounsweet was helpfully pointing out and leading them towards. Ash pursed his lips as he entered the hotel, already thinking about the 2 Pokémon at his side. "Do you just want me to leave you by the forest's edge or do you want to go somewhere else?" he casually asked Bounsweet, turning to face them. "If it isn't much of a bother Dashta." Bounsweet paused and hummed while waiting for Ash to get the key from a receptionist. "I think I'd like to stick around a little longer." Ash smiled, rubbing their leaves affectionately. Pikachu snickered behind his paw, waving a paw at Bounsweet. "I don't mind at all." Ash shrugged. "It's your decision in the end. Just tell me when you want to go back, and I'll personally walk you there if you'd like." Bounsweet smiled and crooned, nuzzling up to Ash's face. They liked this trainer. Morning came quickly, Ash groaning and glaring at the alarm clock ringing by his bedside. His body ached, and he was gonna break that thing. "Everyone up." Ash groaned, rubbing his shoulders and getting up groggily. "Come on, we got school." Pikachu hissed, electric fur standing on end. Eevee looked up blearily, blinking at him with tired eyes before nuzzling back into the sheets, stretching his paws out. Unlike both of them, Bounsweet woke up in an instant, letting out a small yawn before moving on with him. "I'm gonna take a quick shower, and then we'll have breakfast." The trio of Pokémon let out a chorus of confirmation, even as Pikachu and Eevee fell back asleep while Bounsweet bounded towards the TV. Ash grunted and quickly went to take a shower pee over what happened the previous night. After dropping off Roulette and catching a very late dinner, the 4 of them had been caught by an odd Pokémon. Bounsweet had called them a Tapu Koko, whatever that was, and said they were highly praised by the residents of Melee. The bird Pokémon had given him a ring, which was more like a bracelet if anything, and a tail ring for Pikachu. Both of them had a small crystal. Ash's was yellow and Pikachu's was orange. It was completely odd and out of the ordinary, so he figured he'd ask the professor about it. He had a feeling he'd be staying a lot longer than he planned. He sighed, quickly getting out of the shower and get dressed. Opening the door to see the 3 Pokémon watching TV, a rerun from a show about a boy and his grow life. "Alright guys, let's get going." He waved a hand towards the door. "Breakfast first and then we'll head to the school." The 3 jumped off the bed, Bounsweet being the only one to respectfully turn off the TV before heading over. Ash was glad that the Bounsweet had allowed him to capture them. "So, can we get pancakes?" Pikachu purred lazily. "I want something sweet." "Yeah, let's go find us a pancake place." Ash cheered. They promptly went to this well-known place with and got pancakes. Which were surprisingly, not as sweet as they had thought. Though, neither party was complaining, Ash personally loved them. Once they had finished their meal and paid, they headed on over to the school. There was silence all around that put Ash on edge. Yes, he could still hear the bird and the grass Pokémon moving about in the forest, and if he focused hard enough he could vaguely make out some kids laughing in their classes. But oddly enough, this felt like a planned silence. Silently, he wished he had brought his traveling knife with him, but instead he let Pikachu bounce onto the ground and spark dangerously. The 4 of them crept forward, Ash holding a hand in front of Bounsweet as Eevee puffed adorably. Crossing into the school, it was dead silent in the yard. Ash looking around suspiciously. Maybe he was going surprise! He stifled a scream, jumping back almost comically. Bounsweet screeched and dug themselves inside his jacket while Eevee let out a shadow ball. Pikachu threw a quick thunderbolt at the ghost-type attack, exploding it on contact. The resulting explosion let out a million tiny sparkles. The kids he had seen yesterday gasped in shock, awed at the display as Ash wheezed heavily on the side. "Rule number 1, he panted, gaining the attention of 2 of them, the blonde and the black-haired boy. "Don't ever surprise me like that. Please." Lily gasped and started to apologize profusely. Kiawe put a hand behind his head and hissed in apology. The other kids looked to the floor and muttered their apologies. "Mama," he waved a hand, letting Pikachu crawl back onto his head. "It was an accident. Besides, it's not like you knew." They smiled at him. Then Mallow came up to him and grabbed his hand. He allowed her to pull him along as she waved excitedly to the balloons and banners surrounding the floor. "We wanted to give you an Alolan surprise." She motioned to the banners as the others bounded behind her with arms outstretched. "To give you a formal welcome to our school." Nope, they were brats. He couldn't break his resolve. Well, that was the first Alola surprise. The girl grinned mischievously, allowing Sophocles to step forward with a gray mouse in his arms. "The next Alolan surprise is a challenge." Sophocles grinned. "Togedemaru and I challenge you." He blinked and then grinned, a tad bit vindictive. "Me and my Pokémon are always down for a challenge." His Pokémon trilled in delight. Alright you Citron wannabe, tell me what you got, you punk. Pikachu cheered. Satoshi, kick this guy's butt. I accept your challenge. Ash grinned. I hope it doesn't have anything to do with computers. I'm not very good at building one. Sophocles blinked, and a panicked and surprised look crossed his features. The other students had their mouths wide open, even as Ash snickered quietly and his partners outright chortled. So, where is the first challenge anyway? Ash curiously peeked over their shoulders, pouting exaggeratedly as he turned his head left and right. Mallow shook her head and began to lead the group across the field, towards a very odd tarp covering something. Both Lana and Kiawe leaned over excitedly and then pulled the tarp up dramatically. It was balloons. The first challenge is balloon popping. Sophocles butted in. Whoever pops all the balloons first, wins. This should be easy. Ash grinned before glancing at his Pokemon. Which one of you? I want to do it. Pikachu jumped up comically with all four legs. Please, I want to do it. Yeah, let Pikachu do it. Eevee cheered, before pausing and looking over to Bounsweet. Sorry, do you want to try? Bounsweet shook their head, grinning sheepishly. No, I'm not a very sharp Pokemon. They waved their leaves and tiny feet. And I don't have Razor Leaf. So I think Pikachu would be the best bet? Ash grinned and nodded at his partner, who bounded up excitedly. His tail swished dramatically as he waited for the competition to begin. Lily stepped up, glancing at both teams nervously before she raised her arm. On your mark. She squeaked out. Get set. There was a pause as she took large steps back, dramatically. Go! And then she fled behind Mallow. Both Ash and Pikachu raced to the balloons. Both of them gripped the malleable object and began to squeeze. Holy Miltank, this was harder than it looked. Ash grit his teeth, struggling to squeeze the balloon despite the steady popping he could hear on the other side. Finally, the one in his grip popped. He glanced over to see Pikachu's own balloon pop after continuous gnawing on the rubber substance. They turned to each other, confused before turning to hear Lily call out once more. You can use Pokemon moves, too, Ash. Lily called out. You can do this. Lana and Mallow cheered. Pokemon moves. Ash grinned, turning to his partner who was already sparking. Now, Pikachu, Thundershock. Pikachu chirruped in agreement, lifting his arms up and sparking dramatically. He slammed his arms down quickly, a thin weak bolt of electricity shooting out towards the balloons. Now Togedemaru. Softgulls grinned, snapping and pointing at the balloons. Barely 4 balloons popped before the electricity was redirected. The little mouse Pokemon by Sophocles' side jumped eagerly, soaking any and all electricity Pikachu leaked. Pikachu cut off his electricity without hesitation, blinking slowly as he registered what happened. Sophocles grinned. Now you zing zap, Togedemaru. Yeah. Togedemaru cheered, rolling into a ball as electricity sparked around them. They then launched themselves across the field and into the balloon pit, and the electricity popped every balloon around them. Ash watched dumbly. He placed a hand on Pikachu's head. Well, I guess we lost. Ash chuckled, rubbing Pikachu's head as both Eevee and Bounsweet bounded over. That's not cheating, is it? Eevee glanced at the two winners. Can we call cheating? No. Pikachu pouted. But I wanted to win. Maybe next time, Pikachu. Bouncy grinned. After all, this is only the first challenge. Pikachu stopped, perking up considerably. You guys don't mind if I do the challenges alone, do you? Pikachu smiled. Eevee and Bounsweet shook their heads. I don't want to get super tired. Eevee admitted. Just in case, you know. Pikachu nodded seriously, glancing at Bounsweet. I don't know how human games work. Bounsweet tilted, almost as if shrugging. Maybe another day I'll want to join, but everything looks like you need more than legs. Pikachu nodded before the 4 of them turned to Sophocles and Togedemaru. Togedemaru here has Lightning Rod as an ability. Sophocles explained. All electric-type attacks will automatically be absorbed by her. Ash nodded. He already knew about it, but let the little computer geek ramble on. He seemed excited to have one, and Ash wasn't gonna bring that down. You got a point there, but now we got a bunch of balloons here to get rid of. He nodded to his still very full balloon pit. Sophocles opened his mouth but Ash flicked a hand at Pikachu. His partner perked up, a metallic sheen coating his tail as he dived in and spun. There was a small crackle of electricity coating his fur as the balloons were easily pulled towards Pikachu. Just as quickly they were popped. So what's the next challenge? Ash grinned, clapping his hands. He momentarily ignored Sophocles' dumbfounded look, and instead looked at Mallow, who seemed to be the coordinator of all the challenges. Well, the next challenge is Dash. Lana popped up quickly, stars sparkling in her eyes as she raised her hand up. Against me. She grinned. Water? Pikachu snorted, shaking off the charge still crackling in his fur. She smells like someone who's in the water all the time. Fisherman? Is it gonna be a fishing contest? DMN, I wish I had brought my fishing tools with me. Ash snapped his fingers, placing a hand on his mouth and trying to ignore his Pokemon giggling. Foreign princess is like a psychic type. Lana crowed in excitement, obviously meaning for it to be a hushed whisper. I like that, I think I like her the best. Pikachu snickered. Mallow eventually clapped her hands together and led Ash and his team to the next challenge area. There lay two general areas, a long strip of land easily followed by an equally long strip of water. Two cones were on the ends of both sides. Lana clapped her hands quickly explaining the rules. Start the race in water and then it leads onto land, it's an aquathlon. She waved towards the two areas. Once they touch that cone on the far right of the land lane they have to come back across the water to hit the finish line. Easy right? Ash nodded, grinning. He could tell the little Pokemon by Lana's side was exceptionally fast in water. On land however, Pikachu had the advantage. Both Pokemon were led to the starting line. Lily once again stepping up. 3.2.1. Go, she shrieked, jumping back far too quickly. Ash's eyes narrowed, there was something that he was missing. Both Pikachu and the seal Pokemon jumped into the water. The small Pokemon easily passing Pikachu by leaps and bounds, but Pikachu was still fairly fast for a non-water Pokemon. Go Poplio! Lana cheered the moment her Pokemon hit the land and started to awkwardly waddle their way to the cone. Pikachu instantly hit the land, panting and shaking the water off his fur with a quick electrical burst. He shot off quickly, easily, surpassing Poplio and shooting back into the water. He was about halfway into the water when Poplio surpassed him, shooting into the finish line with a fancy flip and a bark of their name. He floated there, blinking almost slowly before dejectedly swimming his way to shore. He gave a heavy sigh, before a towel was dropped on his head. Peeking up he saw Ash with both Eevee and Bounsweet smiling at him. You did great bud, thanks so much for helping. Ash grinned, earning a smile from Pikachu. Of course, I always try my best. Pikachu snapped his fingers, grinning when he earned a laugh. Lily popped up beside them, keeping a fair distance away, piping up almost too quietly. Poplio can swim up to 25 miles per hour. She smiled at them, almost apologetically. Ash waved a hand, standing up. It's all in good fun anyway. Ash grinned. Pikachu here likes the challenge, and he tends to just get competitive. Like you don't either. Pikachu barked, kicking his tiny foot out and hitting Ash's leg. With a sharp eye, he noticed Lily stepping back almost instantly. That couldn't have been good. His attention was once again dragged away, this time by Kiawe who placed his hands on his hips. The next challenge is against me. He held out a hand, grinning. How about it, one-on-one? Ash smirked, nodding and grabbing Kiawe's hand, firmly shaking it. Oh what of it, maybe they weren't as bratty as he thought. Mallow again led them to the field back in front of the school, where a track was laced around the area, loosely guarded by a wooden fence. Kiawe then led him to a stable, where a bunch of toros were. We're going to be racing. Kiawe nodded, almost instantly zeroing in and gripping one of them by their reins. I think it'd be fair if you choose your own. Ash nodded, letting his three Pokemon slide to the floor with little hesitation, before gently squeezing inside the stable to look at the toros. All of them seemed rather skittish in his presence, jumping and scooting back ever so slightly. Except for one. The toros was average-sized, probably an inch or two smaller than the one Kiawe had gotten. But they had nerves of steel, stomping their feet and mooing in irritation. Slapping and hitting their horns against the metal fence they were caged in. Get me out. He mooed. I will not bow, so let me out. Ash curiously walked closer, earning a frigid and cold stare from the thrashing Pokemon. Kiawe had glanced over, face frozen in horror. Not that one. He barked, nearly startling the other toros. That one is still pretty new, and the instructors are having a hard time calming it down. You would have a better chance with the others. Ash waved a hand, stepping closer and placed a hand on the metal cage around the toros. Almost instantly, the Pokemon began to thrash again, shooting forward but staying just a hair's breadth away from crushing Ash's fingers. Hey there fella, what's wrong? As quick as he could, Ash shot out his hand, placing it on the very center of Toro's muzzle, the Pokemon freezing in shock. He let out a defeated noise. I don't know where I am. Ash leaned forward, pressing his cheek against the Pokemon's muzzle. I understand, he breathed out slowly. Let me explain, you're in a school where they're going to teach you how to become a ride Pokemon. Someone many other can trust for transportation. The Pokemon gave him an odd look. Will I like that? Why don't we give it a try, One of the students here wants to challenge me to a race, may I choose you to be my partner in this? The Pokemon perked up, tilting his head to the side. And if I don't like it? Well, I'm sure we can explain that to the instructors here and figure something out. Ash grinned. So what do you say? There was a pause, before the bull Pokemon nodded, allowing the reins and satchel to be fitted before he was led outside. Kiawe gave him a look of disbelief, as well as the other students who were simply gawking. Ash quickly mounted the gill-tempered Tauros and gave them a little smile. Well? The race isn't going to start itself. He nudged Tauros towards the starting line, easily pointing out how he was going to lead the Tauros. In the end, Kiawe had won by about a half body. The Tauros he rode was preening with joy, snorting joyfully while Ash's Tauros seemed to slow down in dejection. It was fun but losing SCKS. He bemoaned, pressing his face against Ash's chest. Ash laughed, rubbing the side of his ear. It really does, but practice makes perfect. He gently lifted the Tauros' head up, playfully squeezing them and rubbing his fingers across their fur. But when you start your training, you'll be one of the fastest out there. Tauros perked up, mooing in delight and allowing Ash to lead the Tauros back to the stable. It was a close race. Sophocles grinned. Yeah, I was just a tad bit slow. I haven't rid a Tauros in forever. Ash grinned sheepishly, letting his Pokemon crawl back onto him. Well, it shows that you know how to ride one. Kiawe patted his shoulder. It was a good race. Ash gave him a grateful smile, shooting him a thumbs up as the kids laughed. Well, looks like he should have packed more. Professor Kukuo came by, with a little puppy Pokemon in his arms. Despite Ash's curiosity with the smaller Pokemon, he forced himself to drag his attention to the older figure. Professor Kukui. He smiled. How can I help you? And the professor grinned. The puppy Pokemon began barking excitedly and wriggling in his grasp in excitement. Well, Ash, I'm your fourth challenge. Kukui lifted up the Pokemon onto his shoulder where they playfully began to jump. Me and Rockruff here challenge you to a battle. Ash blinked in awe. Professors of any region don't often battle at all, despite how well some of them did in their journeys. This would be absolutely. Before that, we should have lunch. Mallow clapped her hands together, obviously excited. She smells like food. Bounsweet trilled happily. Like skis of all kind. See. She smells a lot like Dento and Takashi after cooking. Pikachu chimed in with Eevee giving his little vocal agreements. I guess I am pretty hungry. Ash grinned sheepishly, giving a quick glance to the other students who all looked a touch embarrassed. I'm sure, whatever you cooked will be great. Kukui gave him a raised brow, already figuring the kids had told him everything about themselves. But Lana screamed and dramatically pointed at him, nearly babbling a bit before anyone could truly understand her. You are psychic. How do you do that? Lana yelled. You've basically told everyone what they did without them telling you. What is your secret? Ash stifled a snicker, instead pointing at Pikachu who waved at them childishly. When all they did was give them blank looks did Ash breathe out a small giggle. Pikachu tells me. Another blank look. Me and Pikachu know a lot of people, who have a bunch of different professions. They all have certain sense clinging to them and it clicks. Their eyes widened as a collective, oh, echoed the group. They glanced at each other and began to giggle and laugh. Ash smiled, looking at the professor who chuckled himself before deciding to lead them to the lunch area. Each of the kids sat around the round table, leaving Ash a space closest to the open rail. He was immediately grateful for the opening and sat down, just as Mallow and Kiawe jumped up to run off to retrieve the food. As they came back, balancing plates on their arms, Ash realized he still had his jacket on. A bit rude on his behalf, so he opted to take it off, unfolding the jacket and hanging it on the back of his chair. When he turned back, a hot plate was placed in front of him. Instead of digging in, he looked up to thank them when he suddenly noticed everyone staring at him. Or rather, staring at his arms. He peeked at them, not noticing anything wrong other than the light scaring on him. The only odd thing on him was the, "Where did you get that?" Kiawe nearly snarled, pointing at the odd bracelet on his wrist. And there went his belief that these kids weren't entitled. Which SCKED, they seemed great at first. Oh, this? He swerved the bracelet so the odd gem was facing up. I got it from the Pokemon. It looked like an electric chicken with a mohawk. The entire class blinked as one, trying to process the words Ash just spouted. Electric, mohawk. Kiawe blinked before shaking his head, still upset but not as mad as before as he raised his left arm to show his own bracelet that looked suspiciously like what Ash had. This is a Z-ring. It is given by completing the island challenges. But I've never even heard of a foreigner competing them, and for a Pokemon to give it to you seems unlikely. Ash scratched at his head, shrugged, hastily spooning in a bit of food before he thought a bit more. And he snapped his fingers, swallowing the few bites he had before looking to Bounsweet. Hey bud. Bounsweet, Eevee and Pikachu perked up. That Pokemon we saw yesterday, what were they called again, Taco Nacho? Another odd look, but Bounsweet seemed to understand him immediately, bouncing up and down in embarrassment. Tapu Koko. Not Taco Nacho. They squealed almost immediately, burying their face in their leaves. Both Pikachu and Eevee laughed as Ash snapped his fingers in recognition. Tapu Koko! Ash exclaimed, eyes sparkling. Bounsweet said they were really liked in Melee and they seemed to be e.praise.by the. He stopped blinking before glancing at the ring on his hand and the ring on Pikachu. They gave one to Pikachu too. The class looked at the mouse in unison, who simply flicked his tail to show the bracelet resting just below the flat edge of his tail. It slammed into him in slow motion. The rings, the sketchy way they had appeared, the way the Pokemon was highly praised. For Mew's sake it was named Tapu of all things. He placed his hands on his face and sighed deeply. I just met the legendary of the island, didn't I? A glance up, as awestruck looks entered the students' faces. Oh son of a dash. Tapu! The loud shriek echoed in his ears as he shot up. The students looked vaguely concerned, and it was with a heavy heart that Ash realized they couldn't hear the Pokemon. But the way Pikachu perked up told him that Pikachu heard. That was a plus. Did you all hear that? He asked, despite knowing the answer as he stepped back and walked a few steps down the patio. No use in getting that thing damaged. Ash honestly felt the Pokemon before he saw them, barely refraining from throwing a punch as he stepped back with a strangled yell. The Pokemon looked just as majestic as the previous night, but something about them seemed off. Their very aura screamed ragged, and Ash was genuinely afraid they were being hunted. But instead the legendary grabbed his hat and slapped it onto Pikachu's head. He glanced around, trying to find the Pokemon before it eventually raced out before him and into the forest. Oh come on. Tapu Koko is known for playing tricks on people. Lily yelled. But they also tend to give gifts to people they like. Well, I'm not one of them. Ash huffed, waving a hand behind him. Stay here, I'll be right back. With a flick of his wrists. He recalled both Eevee and Bounsweet before beginning to sprint over to follow the legendary. Pikachu right by his side as always and keeping up with his very quick pace. His stomach began to grow heavy, and he both physically and mentally prepared himself for what was about to come. It was the scent of sickness that filled the air as he slowed to a stop. He glanced around, catching the eyes of several injured Pokemon. His stomach dropped further when Tapu Koko gently floated forward and gave him his hat back. Help them. They whispered. He heard gasps and couldn't help the tears pricking at the corner of his eyes. There were so many. And he only had so much aura. Oh Mew. He whispered, walking up to see a Rockruff lay on the floor half dead. Next to them was a Pikapek with a broken wing, and more Pokemon that were injured or on death's door. And Ash thought he couldn't save them all. Satoshi. Pikachu whispered, eyes wide. None of them would make it if he hesitated. In an instant, Pikachu straightened up. He could share what little aura he had to help Ash. Instead he felt Tapu Koko tap him. Turning, he saw the legendary tap the gem, a crystal, on his ring and start to crow, calling to Ash and gaining both of their attention. Follow me. Pikachu half expected the legendary to leave these poor innocent Pokemon here, but instead, they slowly started to cross their limbs over their chest in an X formation. Pikachu and Ash follow quickly, forming an X with their limbs. They continue to follow, Pikachu raising his right paw up and letting his left paw jet out in front of him with an open paw to the sky. He drags his right foot behind his left, half crouching at this point before quickly slamming his right fist into his open left paw. He feels the energy start to spark in his stomach, shooting high and crawling alongside his back. It's all around him, warm and fuzzy but strong and assuring. And there's a blast. Pikachu purrs in delight. Recognizing Ash's aura from anywhere and a quick glance around tells him this thing did more than feel warm. Pokemon unconscious and dying slowly began to rise up. Scratches and burns whisking away like nothing. With a smile the Pokemon began to prance around, some darting back into the trees. And the energy stops, the Pokemon are gone and Ash is panting in disbelief. Pikachu blinks and glances at his tail. The crystal has shattered. Healer's force, and Pikachu snaps back to the Tapu, who is now floating a bit of a ways away. Now let's see the warriors dance. Before either can really think about what's happening, Tapu Koko falls into a defensive stance, trilling out challenge. Ash steps back and drops a fraction, one foot secured behind him. Looks like the Tapu is egging for a fight. Ash huffs out. Then a fight will give em. Pikachu growls out in agreement, falling to all fours and crouching low. He kept a steady eye on the legendary. Tapu Koko trilled, a large blast of electric energy surrounding the field. Ash could definitely feel the sudden spike in electricity in the air. Electric terrain, he smirked. Well, I guess we got a bit of leeway in this battle. Careful, Ash, they're planning something. Pikachu barked back, giving a sharp look. I know, Ash rubbed his nose. Let's start this off strong, Thunderbolt. Tapu Koko dodged to the side before Pikachu ever built up his electricity, slamming into the mouse before he was well into the sky. Ash gritted his teeth but kept a steady hard look as Tapu Koko raced after them, a psychic shield coating their body as they raced towards his partner. But Pikachu knew what he was doing. Quickly righting himself in mid-air, he let out a small burst of electricity, dropping quickly as the Tapu soared overhead. He landed on the ground with a quick nimble roll, sparking up and shooting off a thunderbolt. With nowhere to go, the Tapu stood their ground, clamping their shield-like appendages around its frame. They broke out rather quickly, Pikachu's electricity fizzling out with little resistance. Well, it's gonna be one of those battles. Pikachu snarled, clenching the dirt around his paws. It doesn't look, we did a thing. Ash gritted his teeth. He started to plan, keeping an eye on the Tapu as they stared at him. And much too fast they darted forward. Towards him. In a quick act response, Ash threw his arms down in an X formation, grunting in preparation of what was about to come. Instead the Tapu trilled, tapping the ring on his wrist and floating back a fair space. Ash blinked in awe as the crystal glowed. You want me to use it? Ash blinked, calming slightly from the spike of anxiety. Yes. Was their only response. Ash glanced back at the crystal, then at Pikachu, who looked just as determined. With a grin he shot his arm to the side, enjoying the way the glow from the crystal followed. All right. Ash grinned. Pikachu, get ready. Always, Satoshi. Pikachu chirruped by his side, already grinning in anticipation. And Tapu Koko once again showed them how to do it. Crossing his arms in front of his face, he then moved his arms into a wide arc before letting them rest at his sides. He brought both arms forward into an X formation, digging his left heel into the dirt as he let his arms rest at his sides again. His left arm shot towards his right, before being dragged up to his left, well above his head. He brought his left arm down and his right arm up, forming an awkward Z with his arms. Let's go, Pikachu. Right. And he threw his left arm back as a ball of electricity formed in front of Pikachu. Shots of adrenaline shooting up his back as he swung his arm forward, Pikachu mimicking his every movement. All right, Pikachu, full power now. He screamed above the large crackles of electricity. Pika Pika dash, Pikachu chanted in focus, struggling as the ball of electricity resisted his force for a fraction of a second. Pi! Finally the ball released, racing in insane speeds towards Tapu Koko. Much quicker this time, the Tapu shut their shield around him, struggling to stay still as the blast knocked them into the tree line. Both Pikachu and Ash struggled to stay still, the blast nearly knocking them back. The Z Crystal. Ash blinked, watching it shatter before his very eyes. Once the wind had stopped he peeked up, blanching at the damage. A large rut followed by a crater was made from the move Pikachu just did, Tapu Koko floating near the very edge, just a bit before the snapped trees. Without so much as blinking, Tapu Koko stared at him, giving a gentle nod before trilling to the skies. And just like that, they were gone. Ash blinked, smiling at Pikachu who was panting in exhaustion. Ash! Ash stiffened, turning around quickly to see the group of students and Kukui staring at him. Mallow rushed forward, a smile bright on her face. Wow! She skidded to a halt in front of him. I can't believe how strong you and Pikachu are. Ash pursed his lips, looking away. Well, what happened to your Z Crystal? Kiawe cut in, looking at both Ash and Pikachu. Without thinking, Ash looked at his ring. His mouth forming a thin line as he stared at the empty space. Once we used it, they disintegrated. Ash hummed in disbelief, eyes furrowed in concentration. That means it's too soon for you to use Z moves. Kiawe sighed. You haven't taken the island trial yet. A spark echoed inside his head, glancing at Pikachu who smirked at him. Well, I guess I'm taking the island trial then. Ash looked up to the group who gasped quietly in surprise. If I pass the trial I'll get another crystal, and that means I can do this the right way. The professor blinked, then laughed. Well, I can't fault that logic. Kukui laughed. The kids cheered, loudly declaring that they would help him. Except Kiawe, but at least he was willing to help. With a smile they all began to walk back to their, probably now cold, lunch. Intent on eating before leaving for the day. By the way, Lily peeked over. We saw you using a strange move and it looked like you were using a Z move yourself, Ash. What was that? I have no idea what you're talking about. He answered with a deadpan and bored look. Suddenly the group looked at each other and laughed, leaving Ash out of the loop for a solid few minutes. Oh well, he could always figure it out later. The day ended quickly, Ash waving goodbye to the students. He turned to wave goodbye to the professor but the man simply patted him on his shoulder. Follow me. He smiled. I have a present for you. A present? Ash queried, cautiously following the professor. His Pokémon followed him cautiously, crossing the island towards the beach where a shack lay. They followed the professor to the basement where a lab laid and he handed him a strange red machine. I felt you could use this. He smiled. What is it? He knocked his hand against the screen, getting no response. A Pokédex. A what? Ash couldn't fathom why he was so confused. He always got a dex in a new region, so what made Alola any different? Maybe it was because he wouldn't be traveling. Regardless, he grabbed the odd-shaped device. Thank you, Professor Kukui. He smiled, flipping the Pokédex over to stare at it. You didn't have to do this, but thank you regardless. The professor grinned, rubbing his cheek. Nonsense, as my assistant I felt that you should at least have something to help you out in this region. Now all that's left to do he swiftly turned around, clicking against the computer behind him. Is activated. It wasn't long before the lights began to flicker, and Ash had to wonder if Kukui was just as deranged as his other professors. Considering the setting, he figured he was right. All done. He rubbed his hands together, grinning. Here it comes. Here, what comes? Ash looked around, unable to find whatever he was waiting for. Eevee and Bounsweet both curled into his side, whimpering at the oddity of what was going on. The professor's Rockruff looked to be in a similar state, nuzzling up to his legs as he shook in fear. Oh, is the main professor the bad guy in this region? Pikachu whispered, eyes darting every which way. Professor? Ash took a step back, just as the flickering began to pick up in pace. You'll see, almost instantly the lights went black for a solid 3 seconds and turned back on just as bright as before. A small Pokémon bounced out of the computer, nearly barreling into Ash before it changed direction and began to bounce around the room. Ash nearly chucked the inactive Pokédex before he was able to get a good look at it. A Rotom? He murmured, glancing at the slightly brighter orange coloring. He wasn't the biggest fan of the electric ghost type, memories of pranks and unfortunate circumstances ringing in his head. Still, he had to wonder why it was here. His Pokémon bounced off his shoulders, following the ghost Pokémon with their heads and turning to make sure it wasn't out of sight. Yup. The professor clapped his hands together. Now all that's left to do is wait for Rotom to go inside the Pokédex. Ash hummed his understanding, eyes darting to closely follow the excited ghost before pausing. Wait, inside the Pokédex? He carefully lifted the dex to stare at it, not even bothering to wonder how that would work. Sure, he had a Porygon-possessed Pokédex, but Rotoms had a habit of changing the composition of the item they were in, so the Rotom slammed into the Pokédex, startling Ash enough to make him step back. The Pokédex began to shake wildly, nearly making him drop it, its screen glowing white before dying down. Ash blinked, giving the Pokédex a little shake. Is .is Rotom actually in here? He tapped the glass, turning it around. Hey a Rotom? The Pokédex shook and a heartbeat monitor appeared on the screen. What dash? 2 eyes appeared on the screen, fitting snugly into 2 odd oval shapes. He let out a yelp, tossing the machine up in surprise. The Pokédex began to float, however, shifting till 2 lightning-shaped arms flung out on either side and a tiny little feet sprung from the bottom. It glanced at all the Pokémon on the floor before facing Ash, scrutinizing him for a second with loud long beeps. Konnichiwa Rotom dash, he paused, shaking his head. I mean, hello Rotom, nice to meet you. The Rotom beeped. Language selection unknown, please specify. The Rotom buzzed, its body tilting ever so slightly. It talked dash. Ash's eyes went wide. Anovian. Language selection complete, it beeped again, turning to stare at the professor. Alola Rotom Dex, the professor grinned, placing his hands on his hips. Please lend Ash a helping hand from now on, okay? Understood. The Rotom buzzed, turning back to Ash. Ash, user recognition complete, Pokédex now booting up. 100%. Alola Ash. Nice to meet you. Alola? Ash tilted his head slightly. The professor blinked, grinning sheepishly. That's right, I'm sure you're unaccustomed to it. It's a greeting here, it can mean hello or goodbye. Kukui quipped slightly, as Rotom floated around his head. Wow, Ash's eyes widened. I've heard of that around here, I didn't know it was a greeting. That's pretty cool. If you would like, I could translate several words from Alolan to Anovian, it would be quite simple. The Rotom Dex floated forward, beeping slowly. Another language musketeer. Pikachu cheered, clambering up Ash's arms and peering at the Dex. Can you teach me the forbidden words of Alolan, that way I can PSS off the locals? Pikachu no, Pikachu squeaked out as Ash shoved his face towards the left. It's nice that we can hold some conversations though. Of course. The Rotom Dex flailed its limbs out, looking oddly proud. I am equipped to communicate with plenty of people of all kinds. That's awesome. Ash held up a fist, already starting to circle around the decks. Awesome? A large question mark appeared on its screen, as its arms flailed slightly. Does not compute, does not compute. Ash blinked slowly, poking the decks slightly as it continued to search through its databases. Rotom decks, what Ash means is that he was very impressed with your capabilities. Kukui stood up from his chair, stretching his back lightly. The decks beeped, floating forward. So Rotomdex is awesome, which is another word for saying excellent dash. The Rotomdex puffed out its entire body looking far too proud. Which means, that Rotomdex is excellent. Oh great, another nutter. Pikachu groaned, ignoring the tiny Eevee snickering. Nutter? Bounsweet glanced at the Pokédex which was slowly floating down to them. Oh look. The nut job is heading down to see us. Eevee bounced onto Pikachu's head, ignoring the electric types whining as the Rotom floated closer. Alola Pikachu, Alola Eevee, Alola Bounsweet and Alola Rockruff. The dex beeped, floating around. It floated back up and face away from the Pokémon, a loud clicking noise echoing through the room. Picture taken. The Rotom floated back to face them, the images of the Pokémon floating past its screen as it named them. Pikachu, Eevee, Bounsweet and Rockruff. Why'd you take a picture of them? Ash hummed, leaning forward. The Rotomdex flailed its arms out, happily spinning for a second. In order for me to update my Pokémon database, I need to take pictures of all kinds of Pokémon so I can memorize them in my hard drives. It patted its screen lightly, a satisfying clink echoing the room. Without them, I would not be able to identify, nor provide accurate information for the Pokémon to be trained. Huh, that's a neat feature, Rotom. Ash raised an eyebrow, leaning back and crossing his arms. Is there any chance you can tell me about my Pokémon? Certainly, but please refer to me as Rotomdex, as I am no longer a Rotom alone. The Dex pouted, waving its arms before buzzing. A picture of Pikachu popped up, replaced quickly by shots of Pikachu out in the wild, then, by the standard image of a Pikachu. Pikachu, the mouse Pokémon, an electric type. It raises its tail to sense its surroundings. If you pull on its tail dash, it floated over, hovering behind Pikachu and gripping the flat edge. It will bite you. Pikachu shrieked, a blast of electricity quickly surrounding everyone too close by. The professor yelped, limbs flying into the air at the shock, and the Pokémon beside him shrieked in pain. It doesn't bite you, it actually shocks you. The Pokédex wailed, releasing Pikachu's tail the moment it could. BSTRD, I oughta kick your butt for that. Pikachu shrieked, fur puffing up as he snapped towards the disoriented Dex. I'm sure it was an accident. Ash hummed, blinking away the sparks of electricity still dancing across his skin. He glanced at all the Pokémon and the professor, wincing slightly. Maybe we should head to the Pokémon Center? Ash grinned uneasily, even as Pikachu continued to spit at the Dex. Oh boy. The next day came by far too quickly for Ash. The Rotomdex rang loudly at his side, reminding him, robotically, of the day to come. All too soon, he was at the classroom. Watching Eevee, Bounsweet and Pikachu play without a care before the students slowly trudged in, exhaustion clear on their faces as they muttered their good morning to him. He hummed back, waving at them before jotting down some extra notes, two which his newly acquired Dex nitpicked over. I don't see the issue with this. If you want to have someone peer review it, don't worry, I have it handled. Ash scowled, poking the Dex. Besides, I have actually seen the nature at hand. Pikachu in general varies from trainer to trainer. The Dex huffed, a personality starting to shine through its previous robotic standpoint. I simply cannot comprehend that fact. All Pokémon are relatively the same no matter what you state, it's simply illogical. The Dex tapped the desk, floating upward. Oh Kuzuru, Ash snorted at the Dex, before standing up. The students stared at him in confusion, already far more awake than when they entered. Ash gave them a smile, stepping forward to the front of the class. Alola everyone. Ash grinned, waving for the Dex to come forward. Before the professor arrives, I wanted to introduce you to a new partner of mine. Meet Rotomdex. A pleasure. The Rotom hummed, using one of its appendages to wave hello. The kids clambered forward, glancing in awe at the Pokédex, after saying their hellos. It's nice to meet you. Rotom grinned, staying floating by Ash's side. A Pokédex with its own Rotom inside. Lily grinned, hands clasping as she observed the Dex. From a distance. That's incredible. Rotom beeped, turning its body to face her. Its grin growing as its eyes closed, pleased with her words. Incredible? Incredible equals awesome, therefore Rotomdex is awesome. The Rotom did a little spin, using their appendages to showcase their pizzazz as a proud smug emoji flitted across their screen. The kids giggled, Lily covering her mouth with the palm of her hand, a smile peeking out. Yes, you are very awesome. It's learned how you talk, Ash. Sophocles' brow shot up in surprise, a smile dancing across his lips. Makes me wonder how your Rotom Dex is programmed? Before Ash's eyes, Sophocles whipped out a screwdriver, twiddling it between his fingers as he inched closer to Rotom. The poor Pokédex, sensing something Ash couldn't, frowned, backing up slightly with wide eyes. I want to analyze your programming for just a second if that's alright. Luckily the ginger didn't inch any closer, but he kept the screwdriver out. Before Ash could even say a word, Rotom Dex twisted in place, shaking its top portion in a no motion. And no, thank you. Rotom squeaked, floating back a bit more. Aw, come on, please? Sophocles leaned forward. It'd be just a look. No. Rotom flitted back, twisting its body before using Ash as a shield, peeking out from over his shoulder. I refuse. I refuse. Ash bit back a grin, nearly laughing as Sophocles deflated in place. The other kids had no such qualms, and laughed, earning a small chuckle out of the youngest. Wow, a Rotom Dex. Ash turned slightly, eyeing the person who spoke. He was startled to see Professor Oak with tan skin and long white hair. He knew the professor would visit once in a while, but this was just sad. Well, it seems you have quite an interesting item there. Oak then turned to him, nodding his head. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name's Samson Oak, the principal of this school. Ash's eyebrows shot up in surprise, a slight blush coloring his cheeks at his own internal accusation. Oh, you're Samson. He blurted out in surprise, turning to bow at the man. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to introduce myself this morning. Oh, it's quiet fine on. Samson grinned. I'm no slocking myself, but my cousin has told me all about Axiu. Ash twitched, closing his eyes for a second to breathe. Oh no. When he opened his eyes, the Oak was grinning pretty cheekily. I'm afraid, Mr. Samuel Oak hasn't told me a word about you. Ash placed a hand behind his head, eyes falling. Would have been good to know, that old BSTRD. Professor Kukui's eyes widened, but Principal Oak cackled in delight, face flushing in amusement. My cousin has an odd sense of humor, more far-fetched than mine. Ash cracked a grin, shaking his head in amusement. I don't think you translated that well. Ash shrugged his shoulders but grinning impishly, to which the principal laughed. Rotom Dex buzzed by his side, prompting Ash to lift his arm up. The Dex took that as an opportunity, sliding from behind his back and up to the principal, beeping in thought. Hello, I am Rotom Dex. The Dex bowed, its face twisted back into a grin. It's a pleasure to meet you. Well, hi Psyduck, Airbook. The principal's face twisted into duck lips before his mouth opened as wide as it could to mimic the snake Pokemon. Rotom floated back, obviously Jared. Turning to Ash, Rotom Dex tilted its body to show its confusion. What is hi Psyduck, Arbok? Its screen turned blue for a second, a question mark warping into existence on its screen. Oh, don't worry about that. Mallow fanned her hand, moving closer to be seen. That's just the principal's way of saying hello. He's always making Pokemon GGS. The Rotom floated back, its body still showcasing the question marks that popped and reappeared. Making Pokemon GGS? In an instant Ash watched as vague Pokemon silhouettes appeared on its screen, zooming past speedily as it chanted something that was steadily higher its pitch. Oh no, was all he managed to get out before the Dex grinned. Yes. Excellent. Samson crowded happily, his cheeky grin still pinned to his cheeks. I see you're getting the hang of it. Well, I'm not Dragonite down. The Pokédex dipped lightly, before brightening its stance into a wide-open one. Matter-of-fact dash. It began to punch the air, spinning tightly. In obvious glee. I'm claunchering off. Inky? Whoopity-doo. The professor grinned, fist tightening as he jumped forward. I really like the cut of your gibberish. He tried his hardest to manipulate the shape of his face, flowing into his puns as best he could. Why not stay with us for a mawile? Whoopity-doo. Smile, Mawile. Duper whooper. Mawile is you. Heh. The professor seemed to have enough of their talk, raising a hand to get the attention on him. He seemed absolutely calm despite the pun intrusion. Alright class, today we'll be doing some field work, the professor grinned pointing at Ash. So now that Ash has gotten a Rotom Dex, why not try scouting the surrounding area for a lowland native Pokemon? Remember, catching a wild Pokemon has an added credit. The students cheered, happily jumping about and high-fiving each other. But Ash just had to wonder why. He wasn't exactly inept at finding Pokemon. In fact, he may have been too good at finding them, so there must have been a different reason. A glance at the professor told him all he needed to know. Noticing his eyes, Kukui gave him a grin and motioned with his hands towards the kids still cheering and blabbering about something. It seemed they were already planning an area to take him to. Bonding, huh? Ash bit back a grin, shaking his head in amusement. Kukui grinned and Ash had this foreboding feeling in his. A destiny bond, that is. Ash sked in a harsh breath, closing his eyes in shame. All the professors, a lot of them were being thrown away in Ash's opinion. The nerve of them. I know that one. Rotomdex paused in his punny conversation, zipping forward and spinning in place. A video began to show on its screen, two Pokemon opposing each other and both in relatively good shape. Destiny Bond, a ghost-type move in the status category. The two pixelated Pokemon on the screen began to move, purple chains appearing from the purple blob that attacked and dragged against the white blob. With a small squint, Ash figured that it was a Jengar and Galade in the simulation. The Galade seemed to knock out the Jengar, instantly KOing the ghost-type. Not too long after, the chains on the Galade seemed to disappear as the Galade fainted as well. When a Pokemon faints after using this move, the opponent that landed the knockout blow also faints. Rotom continued, startling Ash slightly out of his train of thought. You can use that to your advantage as well. Pikachu hopped onto his shoulder and jumped towards the Dex, clinging to it as it swerved and flailed in surprise. Destiny Bond is a move made to be cheated. We've avoided Destiny Bond at least twice, Pikachu, it's not designed to be avoided. Ash snorted, plucking Pikachu by the scruff of his neck. But that's the beauty of Pokemon moves. Kukui grinned. Now how about we settle a bond between the class? Ash snorted at him, but let himself be dragged away by the students. His Pokemon bounding after him and Rotomdex buzzing just above his shoulder. How weird were they all? It didn't take long for them to arrive in the small forest area just beside the school, Rotomdex zipping about and calculating what it could see. Nay, Rotomdex, what Pokemon are in the area? Ash hummed, helping Sophocles over a particularly large log. Rotom beeped in surprise, turning to look at him before a small magnifying glass appeared on its screen. Do all Pokédexes do that? Lily waved a vague hand at Rotom, just as it beeped into existence and a small array of Pokemon icons appeared on its screen. Some of them do. Ash shrugged. There are a lot of different types of Pokédexes in the world, all of them different models and such. In Kanto, when I first started, it didn't do that at all. It was reliable, don't get me wrong. But it was mostly used to identify Pokemon. And see what moves they had. He paused for a second, and glanced at Rotom. Hey Rotom, what are the main types in this area? Rotom buzzed in surprise, leaning back into the air and showcasing the bug symbol Ash was well aware of. It'd be bug types, but there are a few normal types as well. You'd have a better chance catching a Pokemon with this silhouette. A black shape appeared on screen, with a round body and what looked like two pincers on its front. Ash hummed vaguely, glancing at the students and clapping his hands. They startled slightly, glancing at him in confusion. Well, let's look around for some Pokemon. The faster we find one, the faster we can figure out who can catch it, he grinned, winking slightly. Who knows, maybe one of them will come to us. Lily chuckled nervously, as the other students grinned, all of them rushing forward, but not out of Ash's sight, to look for and claim a Pokemon they may see. She hung back, fidgeting the edge of her skirt with restless hands. Ash raised a brow and stepped forward, reaching over to pat her on the shoulder. Instead, Eevee rounded to her field of view, a tiny yip echoing his throat. In an instant Lily froze, a silent but somehow shrill shriek reached her throat before she rushed to stumble back. Her foot caught a small hole in the dirt, throwing her whole body back, and with barely quick reflexes, Ash managed to grab her before she slammed into the floor. It took Ash a second to really process what had happened, especially with the way Lily sprung up almost immediately. A lie spilling from her lips. I'm sorry. She blurted out, hands splaying in front of her, in a futile attempt to keep peace. Eevee scared me and just dash. You're afraid of Pokemon. Ash murmured, stopping her in her tracks. Her mouth fell wide, but her face turned pale. Hands and legs beginning to quake under his stare. And now that Ash really focused, it made so much sense. The way she looked at the Pokemon, how she backed away from Togedemaru and Pikachu, the way she scuttled away from Eevee and Bounsweet. All the signs were there. Well, Ash slowly started, hands spinning slightly. That's one way to find out. Lily stood silent, body shaking and eyes tracing his every movement. Her lips pressed together lightly into a thin white line. Ash felt his entire aura reach out to her, allowing his blue to soothe her very terrified yellow. Slowly, she began to ease up, breathing heavily through her nose as tears began to well into the corners of her eyes. It'd have been nice to know earlier, granted. Ash shrugged his shoulders, giving her a toothy smile. How about me and you chill in the path? So long as we don't go into the grass, we shouldn't get any more Pokemon scares. Lily startled, hands splaying out before she pulled her arms back and stapled them to her side. Her face grew an odd shade of pink. I am not afraid, she stomped her foot as if to prove her point. Pokemon are amazing creatures. There's no need to be afraid. Ash raised a brow, his smile never leaving his face. Internally, all he could think of was the amount of Pokemon that nearly killed him over and over. Pokemon are wonderful creatures. As if to justify Ash's statement, Pikachu rushed over and curled beneath his hand, demanding scratches. But there's no shame in being afraid. He left the statement at that, watching as Lily looked away in confusion. As if no one had ever told her that before. He waited for her for a bit longer, before they started to move towards the others, a silence lingering between them. Ash vaguely wondered what could cause such a vehement reaction towards Pokemon. He had seen so many others be so terrified, and he knew, logically, that hers could differ from anyone else he had met previously. But that firm, unrelenting idea that she wasn't afraid? There were only so many people that could cause that type of reaction. And judging by the lingering concerned glances from her friends, it was in no way one of their faults. There was too much worry about what she announced, not happy or proud looks. Was it someone he had yet to meet? Her parents? Was it school? Did Kukui know about this? What about Principal Oak? Ash held out a palm thoughtlessly, stopping Lily as he let a strange-looking Pokemon cross the road. Rotom buzzed by his ear, naming the Pokemon as it disappeared beneath a brush. Oh well. Hey look, another Pikachu. Lily pointed, dragging his attention away from his thoughts. He glanced a little forward down the road, watching as the students all crawled forward to stare at the rodent. Except, that Pikachu didn't look like a Pikachu. The poor thing was frail, its head lolling side to side in an attempt to stay up. Ash couldn't even see its paws, and had to wonder, briefly, if the Pokemon was subject to poachers. But the call of its species name had the weak Pokemon to stare at them. Wide soulless eyes staring at them and churning his stomach with unease. Something wasn't right about that Pikachu, if it even was a Pikachu. KQ. He felt Pikachu twitch by his side, staring in disbelief at the creature. Sato dash, Pikachu hissed, first standing on edge. That's not a Pikachu. No. He agreed. That's not a Pikachu. The Pokemon twisted in place, a low haunting hum echoing across the field. Ash stepped forward, placing a hand out to stop Lily from moving forward, not that she even made an attempt to try, and began motioning with a quick swipe of his hand for the others to get behind him. Luckily, the students did so fast, just in time to avoid a shadow ball being thrown at them. Before any of them could react, Bounsweet hopped forward, a bullet seed spewing from their lips and exploding the ball on contact. Unfortunately for them, the resulting explosion launched them back. Ash jumped forward, throwing his arms out and letting his Bounsweet slam into his chest, wrapping his arms around them as the force nearly knocked him off his feet. For a quick second he couldn't breathe, but brushed it off quickly to try and get the kids to step back, worry etching his body when Bounsweet wiggled out of his grip to stay at his side. Rotom Dex. He barked, stepping back. What is that thing? It's a Pikachu, isn't it? Sophocles murmured from his side, watching as the smoke billowed away to reveal the creepy Pikachu look-alike. Negative. Rotom zoomed forward, momentarily blocking their view of the Pokemon. Mimikyu, a ghost and fairy type. The lonely Pokemon, it conceals its terrifying appearance beneath an old rag so it can get closer to people and other Pokemon. Mimi, Q. Kiawe whispered from behind him. So why does that thing look like a Pikachu? I heard it's because Pikachu are so popular, and they want to be just as cute as the Pikachu we see today. Lily murmured, gripping onto Lana. But it looks like an injured or sick Pikachu. Mallow pursed her lips, leaning on Ash's arm in an attempt to look closer. It's not exactly, following in Pikachu's cute steps. Maybe it's trying to be scary Pikachu, Lana piped up, grinning impishly. It's trying to ruin Pikachu's good reputation so everyone hates them and it can be the cutest Pokemon around. Ash felt a wave of disbelief, as he turned back to stare at them incredulously. None of them paid him any mind, instead arguing amongst themselves on why Mimikyu was Mimikyu. They were all too into the ghost type to notice that said Pokemon was a little too unstable for casual speculation at the moment. All Ash wanted to do was to get them out of there and fast. Eevee used Cute Charm, Pikachu followed that up with a Thunder Wave. He called a hand splayed before him. The two followed quickly and easily, ready to get it over with so they could run. Pikachu sprinted forward, tail lowering on the floor as the Eevee runt hopped on, jumping as Pikachu twitched his tail to give him an added boost. Normally, any Pokemon trained their eyes on Eevee. But the thing focused on Pikachu. With a screech of what could only be righteous fury, it launched a shadow ball at Pikachu. The electric type gritted his teeth, a flash of yellow appearing before him as two more copies stood by his side. The shadow ball slammed into the copy, forcing it to disappear in a puff of smoke. Eevee let out a shriek, landing on the floor easily as a trail of hearts traced around the Mimikyu, a harsh purple glow surrounding the ghost type. Instead, it launched 2 more Shadow Ball, again, only aimed for Pikachu and the Pikachu copy. Eevee rushed forward, letting the Shadow Ball harmlessly hit him as the copy disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving Pikachu and Eevee gritting their teeth. Ash felt his resolve waver slightly. It wasn't like the fairy ghost was particularly challenging. But this was a wild Pokemon. It was way too skilled, way too coordinated, to not have been a trainer owned at one point in its time. Unbothered by the sudden string of events, Mimikyu leapt forward, its hand a ghastly shadow. "QQ!" It shrieked, much to Ash's confusion. Eevee stood standing in front of Pikachu, maw opening wide as a dark silhouette of fangs appeared, snatching the Shadow Claw and holding it in place for a quick second. Pikachu hopped back, a thunderwave instantly encasing the Pokemon and forcing it to the floor. With that in mind, the 2 Pokemon raced back. "Okay, that's enough bonding for today, let's get the heck out of here." Ash swiftly turned, and began to crowd the kids away, ignoring the Mimikyu's screeches of anger. But the Mimikyu dash, Ash was quick to grab onto Lana and Lily, narrowly avoiding a Shadow Ball that nearly hit the duo. "We'll be fine, but it attacked us first, something ain't right." Ash cut Mallow off with a pointed stare. "Come on, before the paralysis wears off." Getting the students back into school was only half the battle. The other half was trying to convince them that no, it was not a Pikachu and no, they could not go back to try and pet it. Professor Kukui seemed to be on his side, putting his foot down sternly when they tried to raise any arguments. Especially after he saw the footage that Rotomdex had apparently recorded. "Are Mimikyus usually like that?" Ash hummed, scribbling a small note on the side of his notebook as Rotom replayed the somewhat choppy video again. "Not at all." Kukui raised his mug to his lips, taking a slow sip. "The ones I have met have never been that violent?" Ash hummed again, tapping his pencil against his desk as he squinted at the video. The short burst of audio wasn't all that great either, but Ash could clearly make out Pikachu's and Eevee's voices amidst the chaos. Mimikyu's was. Well, it wasn't one he understood too well, if at all. "Aoho you make ia-oe." Ash sounded out slowly, trying his hardest to catch the slight lisps the Mimikyu was saying. Kukui startled at his side, and turning Ash could clearly see the look of surprise on his face. "I didn't know you knew Alolan." The professor pushed his glasses up. "A harsh way to find out, honestly." Ash blinked. Then blinked again. I was copying the Mimikyu." He pointed at the screen. "It says it a lot, I think it's the only thing it actually told us aside from Pikachu. Aoho you make ia-oe, Pikachu." I heard my name. Pikachu pounced onto the desk, staring at Ash and the professor. "Well," Kukui sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. "It roughly translates to, I hate you, Pikachu." Ash reeled back in shock, blinking incredulously at the phrase. Pikachu similarly perked up in surprise, ears standing straight at the phrase. "Now that's a way to find out." Rotom flitted around him nervously, trying to find his place easily in Ash's already growing team. He opted on riding his cap, his hardware thankfully not too heavy to carry around. Then again Ash was a little biased on the weight of Pokemon. The school day was ending particularly early. In Kanto, it usually ended sometime mid-afternoon, roughly 3 to 4 p.m., if Ash remembered his school days properly. In Alola, it could end anywhere from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. It was a wonder why. "Ash!" He glanced up, pausing with his Pokemon as Mallow rushed to him, a smile lighting her face. "Oh hey Mallow, you need something?" Pikachu chittered at his side, waving at her. "Yeah. Me and the others are heading out to my place for a snack, want to join?" She patiently leaned over, obviously brimming with excitement as the other kids slowly walked forward. Ash hummed quietly, tilting his head as he began to think. There really wasn't anything on his schedule today. Sure, maybe we can all get to know each other better. He grinned, his Pokemon cheering on the sides. Mallow pumped her fist ecstatically, grasping his wrists and beginning to pull him away. The other students were quick to follow along, chattering excitedly while keeping up the pace. Turns out Mallow owned a restaurant. Well, not exactly, it was a family-owned restaurant, but really Ash should have guessed. His Pokemon ran around the ledges, pouncing across the banisters as his Bounsweet played with Mallow's Bounsweet. Both of them getting awfully giggly with each other as they stared at the other Pokemon. Pikachu says the Pokemon are plebs. Internally Ash sighed, he'd have to have a talk with Pikachu again. "And here you are, Ash." Mallow plopped down a small plate of food in front of him, taking her seat between Lily and Lana. "Arigato." He tipped his hat slightly, grabbing the spoon off his side. "Hey Ash." Sophocles glanced at him, pressing his cheek against the table. "You're from Kanto, right? How come you barely look any older than we are but you're a teacher's assistant? Why come all the way to Alola?" Sophocles. Kiawe warned, giving him a hard stare, but Ash waved it off. Ma, it's okay. He carefully set his spoon down. In Kanto, children are considered adults at the age of 10, by then I had my ID ready and everything. I may not be too older than most of you, but I'm considered an adult anyway. Simultaneously, all 5 of their eyes widened, Rotom perking up from his spot on the table. That seems rather harsh. Rotom spoke slowly. Alolan customs are very different. How so? Well, children aren't considered adults until the age of 18. Lily pursed her lips slightly, twiddling her fingers. Not to mention, we're not allowed to get a Pokemon until 11, sure we can participate in trails, but only on our island's trail unless a guardian accompanies us. Mallow continued. Oh, how responsible. Ash tapped his chin. In Kanto it's much different, children get their Pokemon at age 10 and poof, many of us go off on our journeys almost immediately. Many trainers generally travel alone. But some others, like myself, manage to make friends to travel with. So while I was really never by myself, the others weren't much older than I was. How did you survive? Sophocles blurted out. Most 10-year-olds can barely cook, let alone survive in the wild. Mimo is almost 10 years old, I couldn't even think. Kiawe muttered, eyes wide in shock and concern. It's a test of sorts. Many of us don't even go out and stay to finish studies and stuff. Ash shrugged. But I didn't even think twice about it, I wanted to leave so I did. That's so terrifying. Lana piped up, tapping her fingers against the table. To be so young and out in the world on your own? I didn't even like to sleep with all the lights out when I was 10. Ash blinked, glancing at them before smiling softly, grinning as he shook his head. I'm not saying it wasn't horrifying, there were definitely some moments that I wouldn't even think to let my mom know, but he raised a hand, stopping them from saying anything. Pokemon are a lot like us. Some of them go out even younger, and I was still very grateful for the experience. I had plenty of great times as a trainer in my 8 to 9 years traveling. 8 to 9 years? Rotom perked up from his table, flitting closer to him. You must have a lot of stories to tell us. Any memorable ones? Mallow followed, clapping her hands almost excitedly. Like a wave, the kid slowly went from horrified to downright giddy, leaning forward to get every bit of story he could tell. Hey Satoshi, the baby chick is back. Pikachu called, pointing at the sky and instantly dragging everyone's attention away from him. That's Rowlet, you moron. Eevee huffed, slapping the electric type with his tail. This is Pikachu abuse. The mouse pouted before pointing at the sky again. Fine, the Rowlet is back and he looks kinda weird? As quick as he could, the Kanto trainer looked up just in time to see a Rowlet plummet from the sky. Without a thought in his head, he stood up, jumping onto the banister and jumping into the sky just in time to catch the bird. With a simple tuck and roll he landed easily on the ground, shaking his head to get any dust off him as he stood up. So sleepy. Rowlet cooed, eyes shutting softly as he snuggled into his jacket. Ash, are you okay? Why the heck would you do that? That was so dash. Whoa! What did you catch? What did you catch? The foreign princess saved a Pokemon. He didn't even hesitate, he just jumped dash. Are all Kantonians this way? I need to update my database dash. Guys dash. Ash held up a hand again, turning to face them. I'm alright, just making sure Lil Rowlet here didn't hit the ground too hard. They all quieted down, trying their hardest to look at the Pokemon in Ash's arm as he stepped forward. Pikachu, Eevee and Bounsweet crowding on the banister to get a better look. He glanced down as well, running a hand through soft feathers and gently focusing aura on the pads of his fingers. Nothing seemed inherently wrong, just natural exhaustion. Great, the bird was a narcoleptic. He's fine, just tired. Ash grinned, gently rubbing a finger against the bird's cheek, trying not to laugh as the bird cuddled back. I think he'll be pretty hungry when he wakes up. I'll have to get him something to eat. You're such a mom. Pikachu scoffed, pouncing onto his shoulder. A Mima is you. The best mom, does that mean we get snacks? Eevee chirped, grinning cheekily as Pikachu flopped onto his shoulder in exaggeration. Feed him? Do you plan to catch him? Lily raised an eyebrow, keeping a hand on Mallow's arm. No, not really, I promised his mom that I wouldn't. Ash walked up the small steps, stopping at the final one to sit on before leaning against the rail of the banister. Just want to make sure he's alright, you know? But why not? It's a perfectly catchable Pokemon, it's even in your arms. Rotom pointed out. Rotom Dex is right, with it asleep, it can't even fight back. Sophocles pointed out. It seems to like you anyway, it was the Rowlet you had the other day as well, no? Yeah, he's the same Rowlet. Ash nodded, waiting for them to settle down. But even if he did like me, I could never catch him without consent, or a battle. It's just not me. Most trainers wouldn't even bat an eye. Kiawe glanced at him, almost unamused as he pointed at Rowlet. The Rowlet line are highly sought after in Alola, not many people can find them out in the wild, and a starter batch isn't exactly waiting for everyone. Their final evolution is pretty extraordinary from what I've heard. Even if it was a cool final Evo dash, Ash shifted in his spot, careful as to not jostle Rowlet. I wouldn't even think of evolving him if he didn't want to. I don't understand why not. Wouldn't he be stronger if you did? Mallow glanced at Lily, then Kiawe, then back at him, eyes tracing his face for any sort of indication on an answer. And answer Ash did. I guess a lot of people think that way. Ash glanced at the sky, watching the clouds for a second. They were really fluffy today. But I don't want to catch him for the sole purpose that it's not my right. I wouldn't even think about taking him from his home if he didn't want to. Consent is everything. It's why Pokemon have battles when you're out in the wild. They want to get stronger, and being with you will make them strong. So if they go with you, they should know the consequences of what's going to happen. Rotom flitted closer, turning its body to stare at the kids then Ash. It's illogical for them to expect anything when they set their lives in your hands. Yeah, that's how a lot of trainers think. That they're yours now, so what does it matter, right? That's also how trainers think when they don't evolve their Pokemon. Pikachu hopped off his shoulder, Eevee crawling up to sit by the mouse. Bounsweet carefully sat on his knee, staring intently at him. But could you imagine, trusting someone with your life, someone you thought of as a friend only for them to want you to change at the drop of a hat? Ash paused, letting his words sink in. It's much different for us, we're human, incapable of evolving like Pokemon. Their entire body changes, or maybe they want to change but someone won't let them. It's why I'm careful with evolution. Some of my strongest Pokemon have never evolved, simply because they never had the urge to. Then he glanced at the kids, smiling softly. Evolving isn't always bad, plenty of Pokemon crave evolution. But you shouldn't force it onto them. You get me? One by one they all nodded slowly, taking careful glances at their Pokemon as they rushed back to play. Maybe it was a lesson Alolans never learned, not that Ash expected it. But planting a seed of compassion wouldn't hurt anyone. Can you ask our Pokemon if they would ever like to? Lana looked back at him. You'd be able to understand much better than we could. Ash chuckled, leaning his head back against the banister. I could, but asking your partner what they would like won't hurt any of you. Their minds can change just like ours do. Give them time and ask when you think it's right. It never has to be right away. Silently, they all nodded. Finally he felt a tiny shift in his arms, glancing down to see Rowlet finally open his eyes. Makuahine? Rowlet slurred tiredly, leaning up to sit. Little bit far off the edge, bud, it's me Ash. Ash chuckled. Ash! Rowlet burst into life, blinking wide-eyed at him before flying to his shoulder to nuzzle into his cheek. It's a pleasure to see you again. Pleasure, and yeah, it's great to see you too, pal. What are you doing out here all by your lonesome? Rowlet perked up, tilting his head in confusion. Why are you without your flock? Pikachu repeated his question. Yeah, where's your nakama? Eevee pounced forward. My Ohana is back at the nest. Rowlet crowed, hopping off Ash's shoulder to talk to the other Pokemon. Kaikwahine said it was time I bring food back. I brought a nice smelling berry but Makuahine said it wasn't food so I have to come back and get more. Rowlet began to waddle off, ready to fly off without a thought. Why not eat something first before you go? Ash prodded. Food for me? Yes please. Rowlet twisted his head, surprised at first before trilling happily, hopping in small tight circles excitedly. Ah, he's dancing. Mallow grinned, handing him a bowl of fruit from practically nowhere. What did he say? What did he say? Lana gripped the banister, standing on her tippy toes to see better. He's collecting some berries for his family. He's old enough to start scavenging on his own, so this is his first real hunt. Ash summarized. He brought back an incense the first time so he has to do it again. By the time he had finished explaining, Rowlet had finished the entire bowl of fruit. The bird looked content, eyes closing as he crooned happily. As quickly as he closed his eyes, he snapped them open. Food for Ohana. Rowlet chirped, remembering just in time with Mallow bringing a watermelon out. Without a thought, Rowlet gripped the medium-sized watermelon with his claws, lifting it up and ready to fly off. He paused, glancing at the students and assistant staring at him. Eyes darting to Ash's and chirping happily. Come on. Makuahine would love to see you. He fluttered in place, using the weight of the watermelon to swing him around and flying off. Hurry, hurry. Baby wants us to see his family. Pikachu snickered, glancing at Ash and sprinting after. Follow the bird. Eevee called out, almost dramatically, before he also sprinted after. Well, Rowlet wants us to follow. Ash laughed, standing up and grabbing his pack. Quickly, and without a thought, all the students hurried after, their Pokemon either returning to their Pokeballs or trying their hardest to keep the pace up. Ash picked up Bounsweet and raced after. This.is new. Bounsweet hummed. New things are fun. Ash shot back, grinning when they laughed in delight. They traversed the forest pretty easily. Despite Rowlet being a relatively fast flyer, he seemed to slow down just a bit for their sake. By the time they reached the nest, Ash hummed in surprise. The berry bounty he had seen on the first day seemed to double, a good thing if anything. Ash, look at them. Rotomdex awed, turning quickly to snap photos of all the Pokemon they could see. Pikapek, Trumbeak, and a Toucanon along with a single Rowlet. It's a huge flock. How cool! Pikachu crowed, hopping onto the branches but keeping a fair distance. Look at that, they're hoarding like Ursaring do before hibernation. Our bird family doesn't do that. Eevee sniffed, hopping onto his hind legs to get some sort of view. Haquahine. Rowlet chirped, plopping the watermelon safely amongst the berries. I bring food. Toucanon let out a small sigh of relief, closing her eyes and opening them to give her chick a bird equivalent of a smile. Soon after, Trumbeak swooped down to congratulate her younger brother, patting him on the back as he preened at the praise. Ash smiled, shaking his head before stepping forward. Little ones making their first steps are adorable. Ash grinned, startling the group slightly. Rowlet chirped, hopping back to Ash and snuggling into the crook of his bag and his neck. Little ones, he says as if he's not a little one himself. Toucanon shook her head exasperated. I see you brought other chicklings. I'm not a little one, I'm just short. Ash stuck his tongue out at her before waving at the group. And yeah, this is the class I'll be helping out this year, I'll be the guardian of this flock, helping the younglings spread their wings. She bobbed her head, just as the group looked at him. Noble indeed, especially for a little one. Rude dash. Ash, did you just refer to us as younglings? Kiawe gave him an odd look, face scrunching slightly. I'm more concerned about the fact he called the group a flock. Humans don't have wings to spread, Ash. Rotom added, twisting his body to float with the now confused pack of children. It's something you learn. While many Pokemon understand humans perfectly well, not all of them can piece together what they mean. He paused, shifting so Rowlet didn't fall off his shoulder. Bird Pokemon generally understand more, but group or groups has a different meaning and class isn't generally in their vocabulary. Flock is a general word for a group amongst bird Pokemon. Younglings are usually children that are just about old enough to be on their own. Spreading their wings is more of, we're teaching you how to go out on your own or be prepared for it. Their faces lit up in recognition, realization, and a dawning on their face. You do know we could have pieced that together, right? Toucanon snorted. Makes it easier in the long run, dash. Ash grinned, side's eye. Get to show off the fact that I can be smart when I want to. Too bad he doesn't show that off all the time, Pikachu crowed, hopping off the tree and landing nimbly on the floor. Usually, he's very stupid. Very stupid. Eevee agreed, sitting on Ash's foot as he bobbed his head. How rude, Bounsweet thinks I'm smart, dash. You threw yourself off the little lift thing at the restaurant place instead of running. I don't think you're that dumb, but I question your smarts. Bounsweet cut him off, whistling innocently. Pikachu and Eevee burst into laughter, falling onto the floor in a struggle to breathe. I'm guessing they said otherwise, huh? Mallow chuckled nervously. I've been betrayed by my own Pokemon. Ash pouted. There was a pause, then a giggle. Ash sighed when the giggles turned to laughs. Chuckles and snorts from both human and Pokemon. He has to smile. Glancing around at both human and Pokemon enjoying his apparent and obviously serious betrayal, was something pure. Like nothing was wrong and everyone could get along. Fwhip. There were startled shrieks. Fwhip. Ash turned quickly, bracing himself for something more. Instead, he saw both Toucanon and her flock covered in a net. Everyone involved looked uncomfortable and the students gasped behind him. We got him! Yelled a familiar voice. Good, how dare you steal food from Beware? Another familiar voice yelled. And there went the mood. Ash groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose as his students began to yell. Who are they? What are they doing? Let go of them right now. The three uncomfortably familiar trio popped in, surprised to see other people for just about a second. Then, did someone ask something? The pinkette of the trio grinned. We're here to find out. Noble answers are what we're all about, the lavender-headed male smiled smugly. The beauty so radiant the flowers and moon hide in shame, a single flower of evil in this fleeting world, Jesse. The nobly heroic man of our times, the master of darkness fighting back against the tragic world, it's James. It's all for one and one for all, a glittering dark star that always shines bright, dig it, while Meowth takes flight. The Kanto Meowth grinned, still holding the net launcher in his paws. Team Rocket, let's fight. Both Jesse and James pointed at them dramatically, back to back with sharp grins. That's right. Meowth hopped back, standing between them with claws unsheathed. Boo, your performance SCKED. Pikachu crowed, chortling in amusement. Are you joking? Eevee grinned impishly, hopping onto Pikachu's head and dramatically waving his paws around. Encore, I demand an encore. Admittedly, one of your better mottos. Ash shrugged, waving his students away. I still think the one you first used was the best. We worked hard on D's twerp, don't goes about messing with our shtick. Meowth hissed, ears falling back. Get a better shtick. Pikachu howled, waving Eevee off his head. I think it's better than the one they did in Unova. Eevee grinned, rolling onto his feet. Ash, do you know them? Ash started for a second, completely forgetting that no one knew them as of yet. He glanced at Kiawe, blinking slowly. Nay, more or less, we have history. Ash waved a hand, fighting back the wince. A lot of history. History schmistery dash, Jesse growled, waving a hand a wag and pointing at the birds. They stole from our friend Beware and we ain't letting that happen. Yeah, and if you think we're just gonna let that go dash, James hopped down, a pokeball in hand. You's gotta another ting coming twerp. Meowth grinned, pointing the net rocket at them. There wasn't any pause as Meowth shot off a shot, James releasing Wobbuffet almost simultaneously. Dodge it! Ash yelled. His Pokemon dived to the side, but Ash was greeted to a net in the face, dragging over him and his students. Ah! Sophocles fell into his side, tangled into the mess that was the net. Turtonator, come on out! Kiawe yelled, Pokeball opening. Pikachu, Iron Tail! Ash yelled, gripping the net tightly and leaving an opening for Pikachu to safely cut open. The electric type fell to all fours, darting by quickly as his tail took on a metallic edge. He jumped up, leaving a blanket of sand as Eevee kept Wobbuffet distracted and a Mimikyu slammed into his side. Motherfucker! Pikachu cursed as he was slammed down. Oh ha 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 ha! Jessie cackled, slightly bringing her hand up to the corner of her mouth. I see you've met our newest addition. Q, the ghost type hissed, a shadow claw beginning to build up. Ash hissed, feeling his own hackles rising. That mewed med Mimikyu. Pikachu, keep em on their toes. Ash called out. Turtonator, use flamethrower. Kiawe yelled. Pikachu jumped back, flipping away as the shadow claw left indents in the dirt, every swipe aiming to maim his partner. Turtonator managed to cut them off, preventing them from moving closer as a stream of fire raced towards the ghost type. Ash, why not try Bouncewheat's Razor Leaf? Rotom buzzed, bringing up some stats that Ash couldn't even read. It has a 55 base power range and a 95% accuracy rate, using it would be beneficial for us. Bouncewheat curled at his side, looking up curiously, waiting for a command. No dash, Ash shook his head, raising a hand to stop any arguing. Bouncewheat doesn't have much control or power over Razor Leaf just yet. If they used it, the power could harm us more than help. He paused, looking at the now dejected Bouncewheat. If I trained you more, this would be a no-brainer. Ash pulled at the nets. But for now we'll have to wait for Eevee or Pikachu to be free. Don't you have any other Pokemon? Lana asked, trying her hardest to pull the net off. He shook his head. No, but I'll make a note next time. He huffed awkwardly. Oh, what's the matter? Toop caught his tongue. Meowth grinned at him, white teeth shining. To think, finally, after 8 years, we got him. James clapped his hands excitedly, nearly cheering. Of course we beat him, it was only a matter of time. Jessie laughed. And then Ash felt it, the net tearing away from his back and letting him loose. The ropes fell around his frame, causing choked sputters from the trio of villains. Look at that! Mallow shook off the net, pointing at something out of Ash's line of sight. Quickly, Ash activated his aura sight, eyes darting every which way to find what he was looking for. And he found them by Toucanon and the Pikapex. Rowlet, the grass quill Pokemon. A beloved starter to the Alola region. Rotom buzzed by his side, bringing up a quick entry for the students and Ash. Silently it glides, drawing near its targets. Before they even notice it, it begins to pelt them with vicious kicks. Rowlet, being the awesome little bird that they were, followed through with his entry, sending a vicious kick to Wobbuffet and knocking them into the Mimikyu. Eevee used Shadow Ball, Pikachu Thundershock, and Bouncewheat used Bullet Seed. Ash called out quickly. His Pokemon followed through easily, the combination of moves throwing the duo towards the trio of morons. His students came by his side quickly, releasing their own Pokemon and ready for a more hardy battle. Frankly, Ash was a bit miffed that his students overestimated them a little too much. Oh you twerp, I've had it with you. Jessie stomped down her foot, Mimikyu used Shadow Claw. Except the small ghost type squeaked out definitely, a Shadow Ball forming rather quickly and aiming towards Pikachu. Hey you dumb BSTRD, don't even think about it. Pikachu hissed, electricity beginning to spark. Except nothing came of it. The large hulking form of a bear-like creature bounced through with a call of their name. They dragged the trio of rockets and their Pokemon into a hug, lumbering away with a happy tune. I have my name, and I have these kids that need to be fed, I have my name and I have my kids dash, they sang, tilting side to side as they disappeared into the forest greenery. Ash blinked, turning to look at his Pokemon and then at his students. So, is it normal for Pokemon to kidnap bad guys here? Ash huffed, picking up the pace as he scrambled past the school's gate. Late, how in the reverse world are we so dash? Ash let out a muffled scream, closing his mouth tight, and continued his run. If it's any consolation. Rotom swung beside his head, easily gliding. I blame the rat. F-O-F-F-U-B-S-T-R-D, ITS not even my fault. Pikachu screeched by his side, using a paw to angrily brush dirt up. Electricity. Eevee sang, smugly pushing his paws against Ash's hat. Does wonders to alarm clocks. Eevee. Ash scolded half-heartedly, dashing into the front doors. What did I tell you about messing with Pikachu? To make sure it doesn't interfere with your schedule. Eevee grumbled, ears falling flat. It's not my fault. Baba says that Pikachu is an a-hole sometimes and needs to be messed with. And Pikachu hit me with his tail too. He deserved it. If Baba finds out you said a bad word, he's gonna kill both of us. Ash shot back, slowing down a second as he reached the top of the steps. Who even told you how to say that? Bulbasaur, who else? Pikachu grinned. You're getting your snack privileges taken away, Ash warned Pikachu, stepping into the nearly empty room. I have my own money, you don't own me. The electric type wailed mockingly, rushing past him to jump on his desk. Alola everyone, Ash waved at the students, grinning when they waved. Alola Ash, Mallow smiled. I told you guys he was just running late. Big news to all of you, Alolan alarm clocks are apparently not electric proof. Ash sighed. Eevee let out a yip, jumping off his head and onto the floor. With a subtle flick of his hand, Bounsweet was soon out of a pokeball and onto the floor, shaking their leaves before running off without so much as a look back. Brats, the lot of you. Ash scolded his Pokemon. I'm guessing Pikachu didn't like the sound? There's this one place in the mall that has electric-proof alarm clocks, they're huge and clunky though. Sophocles shrugged. That's neat, I'll need to go about getting one. He glanced at Pikachu, then at Eevee. And a bell for Eevee, it's not so much Pikachu who's alarm clock phobic. I'm not scared of the dumb thing. Eevee wailed loudly, angrily stomping his paws. Considering how much you yip when they ring, I doubt it. Pikachu sneered, grinning when the fox-like Pokemon snarled at him. It didn't take long for the two to start sprinting around the classroom, random screams and yelps echoing as Ash rolled his eyes. This, kiddos, Ash waved at the two, dragging himself to his desk and laying his bag down. Is why you don't let your Pokemon get cranky. Are they, always like this? Kiawe quirked a brow, shuffling back when Pikachu pounced onto his desk. Nah, those two are generally pretty calm, despite their bratty nature. Ash pursed his lips, pausing when the two turned to yell at him. Eevee gets cranky being away from his dad, so I'm bringing him over midday. New Pokemon? Ash startled, fumbling with his bag as Lana excitedly slid from behind him, eyes sparkling with excitement. It will be a known Pokemon. New Pokemon being discovered is highly unlikely due to the number of researchers around as of late. Rotom supplied helpfully. I'm sure the Pokemon Ash will bring will be a common Pokemon, more than likely a part of the Eevee line. Given the rank of Eevee evolutions around the world currently, and winding it down to Kanto-centered evolutions, we more than likely will be seeing a Vaporeon parent. Really? The kids turned to him as one, excitement brimming from their bodies. Ash chuckled uneasily, opening his bag and carefully moving his newly caught roulette. He continued to shuffle through his papers for a second, contemplating on what to say. Ah well. He glanced at Rotom. Not really, I'm not really sure who gave birth to Eevee actually. But how? Aren't Pokemon attached to their eggs? Did you just find Eevee? Lily pressed on, squeaking when Eevee stumbled a little too close. Kind of. Ash shrugged. Kanto Pokemon are more likely to abandon their eggs, at least, the Eevee line is especially bad at it. They aren't pack-oriented Pokemon and tend to wander alone, so having an egg that's too small is more of, not worth keeping. He paused, humming when his students gasped. You're telling us, is that the Eevee line will just, let their eggs die? Mallow floundered aimlessly, eyes wide and pinned with shock. Nay, no, not all the time. Ash shook his head. I'm not really sure how it works. Trainer Eevees and breeder Eevees keep all their eggs, but we don't have much research on wild Eevee. But Eevee eggs are found a lot more than actual Eevees. Eevee barked, crawling onto his desk and glumly crawled up his arm, burying his tiny body into Ash's neck. I didn't find Eevee, he gently scratched his Pokemon's fur. One of my Pokemon did, he raised and nursed the egg until it hatched, then raised and nurtured Eevee for quite a while now. I must have been in Sinnoh when Eevee was born. He's been attached to the hip to his dad and this is the first time he's been away from him for so long, so he's cranky. I'm not cranky, Eevee murmured. Nay, don't worry bud, Baba will be here in a few hours. Ash soothed. Baba, what's that? Sophocles tilted his head. It's a way that Kanto Pokemon say dad. Ash waved a hand, I'm not too sure dash. Alola class. Ash swiveled in place, tensing when the professor walked through the door. The kids scrambled to get back to their seats, startled yelps of Alola. I see you all were having an impromptu lesson, sadly we won't be following that line of the topic. Kukui gave Ash a look, clearly amused. When they ask a question, I gotta answer, it's the best way to learn. Ash grinned, sitting down. A very good way to teach as well, Kukui clapped his hands, turning to the students. Another great way is hands-on learning, which is what we'll be doing today. Are we going out onto the field? Sophocles raised his hand the moment he spoke, the other hand reaching out to grip the opposite end of his desk. Precisely. Kukui grinned. In fact, a little more than that, we'll be going out to learn about water Pokemon. And the best way to do that dash is out in the ocean. The class chimed in. Exactly. Kukui leaned back, pulling out a fishing rod that he had leaning up against the board. We'll be using the ride Pokemon to get out. Everyone get ready to pack your items to go out to sea. The kids scramble about excitedly, leaning over in groups talking to each other with bright eyes and clenched fists. Ash turned to the professor, quirking an eyebrow slightly. I had no idea we'd be going out, I wasn't sure what to think when you mentioned a water-type lesson. The Kanto assistant pulled out a paper, waving it slightly to show the syllabus they had for the day. If you were in any other class, I would say you were right on the mark. Kukui grinned, reaching over to push the paper down. But this is the most advanced class in the school, and the principal feels like the outdoor experience is just as important. Our class gets a little more leeway on how far we go because the kids are advanced and that I am a professor, the only thing we needed was another assistant to make sure we covered our bases. So I'm the key for all of this? Ash raised a brow, huffing and Eevee turned his bright brown eyes at the professor. Sort of dash, Kukui shrugged, reaching beneath his desk and pulling out the list of calls he needed to make. If you hadn't come, we still could have gone but not for as long. If I needed another I could have requested the principal or another teacher. Ash bobbed his head, slightly impressed when the professor pulled out a fishing rod. Alright I'll bite, is there time for me to swing by and get some items I need before heading out? Or will we be going immediately? You have roughly an hour dash, Kukui swung the closed fishing pole onto a bag. The kids need to get their items from their locker and get dressed before we head down. Not to mention some calls I need to make sure everything is in place. If you can get to the port by the hour, we should be fine. Ash grinned, glancing at his Pokemon still rummaging around the room. Perfect, you mind watching my Pokemon for me? Or at least, Pikachu and Bounsweet. He pointed at his Pokemon. If it's too much I can take M. Go ahead. Kukui grinned. The kids can learn a bit more about your Pokemon and how to care for other trainers as well. With a nod, Ash quickly packed his things away, gently leading Rowlet back into his bag and calling over his 2 Pokemon and Rotom decks. A quick rundown and Pikachu knew everything, so Ash was free to head out. By the time he came back, the kids were at the port standing in a semicircle around the dock. They all had safety vests on, hands wrapped tightly around their respective fishing rods with nothing more than a Pokemon bobber wrapped on the end. Lily, going so far as to be in some sort of radiation suit that seemed so padded she could barely walk. Ash snuck in just behind them, standing beside the overly dressed girl to listen in. Lana stood in the front, limbs quaking slightly as the professor announced the daily plan. Alright students, be careful when you're going on your ride Pokemon. Just watch your footing and keep in mind that the step will be wet and slightly slippery. Kukui waved to the gaggle of Lapras and Whalemare behind them. Ash watched as Lana ignored the warning, scrambling onto a single-seat Lapras without a sound. Her Pokemon easily slipping by and onto the helm with a happy bark. Ash let out a whistle, startling Kiawe and Lily. Lapras, I always forget that they are far more common now. He grinned, leaning up and winking. They're very gentle Pokemon, but they love to mess around and play games too. Ash, you're back. Sophocles waved a hand. I told you he would come. He just left without a word. He's a teacher. Of course, he wouldn't need to dash. Okay guys, how about we get on the Pokemon first and then we discuss this? Ash laughed, gently shooing them forward just as Pikachu and Bounsweet rounded around the students to clamber onto his shoulders. Where's Evie? Lily peeked over his shoulders. He slyly lifted his cap, showcasing the small Evie sleeping peacefully within the tussles of his hair. He was lucky that the small fox Pokemon was such a heavy sleeper, if not he wouldn't have had any idea what to do with a cranky Eevee. Lily's mouth formed an O shape rather quickly, eyes darting from the smaller-than-average Pokemon to her own hands, barely noticing as she eased her way onto the Lapras she was steering. Mallow very carefully followed her blonde friend, easily steering the conversation away from her touching the ride Pokemon. All the kids seemed to have vastly avoided pointing it out too soon, which was great. Ash, come on, you'll be riding the whalemare with me. Kukui jerked his head slightly to the side, motioning to the double-seated whalemare. Ash smiled and shrugged his shoulder. Don't worry, Professor, I got this. Before the Alolan man could say another word, Ash twisted a Pokeball onto his palm, grinning when a cold rush practically encased the ball. As a trainer, Ash could never have planned this moment perfectly. He reeled his arm back, quickly throwing the Pokeball into the air with an underhand throw. All right, Lapras, come on out. Ash could quite clearly hear the sound of the kids' excitement. Especially when Lapras made a grand entrance of splashing in. Thanks to the way she dived out the Pokeball. The ball snapped back a perfect arch for Ash to catch and rebuckle. Wow! That's a Kanto Lapras! Lana yelled, jumping to her feet just as Lapras surfaced. The little brat cheered in delight, rushing circles around the other Lapras, not weighed by any riding equipment. She was a fair bit smaller than the ride Lapras, roughly a head shorter than most of them, but her skin was far cooler, a softer blue, as opposed to the bright blue of Alolan, raised Lapras. Hello, hello! Lapras cooed out, turning tightly in place before she waved a flipper. Ash, what's going on? Lapras, she swam to his side, letting him clamber easily on her shell without worry. This is the class I'm an assistant for. That's Lana, Kiawe, Sophocles, Mallow, Lily, and that's our boss, Professor Kukui. Boss is a strong word. Kukui started, only to be drowned out by the students. It's so pretty! Mallow crowed out, hand reaching out as if she could pet Lapras. How do you even own one? They're so hard to find in the wild. I caught her back when the restrictions were still in place, but that's another story for another day. He gripped onto one of her spikes, swinging his body on and easily resting against her neck. We do have a lesson we need to get to. Almost as one, the kids groaned, looking over to give puppy dog eyes to their professor. Ash could only grin at the man's confused and startled stare. I think Ash is right. Kukui pushed up his glasses, grinning sheepishly. We should head over to get our lesson underway, and maybe once we start lunch, Ash can explain. If the kids were thinking about complaining, Ash sure as hell didn't see it. Instead, following at the back to make sure none of the ride Pokemon strayed away from the group. Thankfully, they were all trained well and they made it to the final spot without any delays or trouble. Ash listened with half an ear as Lana instructed the rest of her classmates how to fish, Rotom buzzing beside her and recording her despite her obvious jitters. It didn't take long for all of them to cast their poles in, Ash delightedly dropping his own to participate. He watched his partner dip his own tail into the water, letting his fur mingle in the saltwater. Wow, look at Poplio! Mallow crowed, the tiny water pup dancing within the waves but well away from the lures. It looks like it's having tons of fun. Poplio is a water-type Pokemon. Naturally, it has a lot of fun in the sea as the water is its home turf. Rotom chirped, floating closer to Mallow. Poplio also really likes the sea. Lana grinned, pulling at her rod for a second. We usually try to be here when Poplio practices its balloons. Balloons? Ash hummed out loud, glancing at the water type that just barely bounced over his lap. Why would it make balloons? Balloon. Poplio chirped, blowing out a small series of bubbles towards him. They popped almost immediately, drenching his shorts in water. Poplio, the sea lion Pokemon, and the water starter of Alola. Rotom swung its body around Ash's head, bringing up pictures of other trainers' Poplios. This Pokemon can control water bubbles. It practices diligently so it can learn to make big bubbles. Another source claims that Poplio gets on top of its bouncy water balloons to jump higher. It's quite the acrobatic fighter. Yeah. Me and Poplio have been trying so hard to get its balloons to be really big. Lana grinned, casually glancing at the water. One day, Poplio will make a big enough balloon that I can ride in and explore the sea with me. That's right. Poplio howled, slapping their flippers together. We'll travel the world under the water. Me and my bestest friend. How cute, I'm gonna hurl. Pikachu snarked teasingly. Be nice. Ash admonished, before turning to Lana with a smile. That sounds amazing, a really fun experience all around I hope. But quite illogical, Rotom floated by, spinning slightly. Based on current calculations, it would appear that Poplio has barely started making balloons. Given the consistency and malleable nature of it, it's unlikely to ever be able to reach the full size of a child, let alone a human, without ever reaching its final evolutionary form. That's given prior data. I'm sure with proper analysis and training we can easily test the full structure of Poplio's balloons and see if a diet could change how it forms. Sophocles rang out cheekily, typing gingerly against some device in his hand. Anything is possible with proper scientific data and deduction. I think training would have been far better for it. Kiawe raised a brow, before jutting his chin over to Mallow. Training and a proper diet. I dunno, I think certain foods could help. Mallow swung her fishing rod aimlessly, staring at the water with intense concentration. Just how tomato berries can make a fire type's flame stronger, there has to be a food combination out there to help Poplio and Lana. I think there are some books I have based on water type's dietary needs, maybe we can find something in there. Lily clapped her gloved hands together. Yeah. The water trainer stood up delightedly, fishing rod practically twisting in her grip. Poplio has all the time it needs. And we won't stop training till we get it right. Yeah. Poplio barked, slapping their flippers together before diving into the water, a slew of bubbles appearing on the surface. Ash grinned, watching the students talking animatedly amongst themselves, and shared a glance with Professor Kukui, who seemed just as pleased. He watched the students struggle to fish, keeping an eye on Lily as her fishing rod bobbed almost too suspiciously for his taste. Lana, on the other hand, seemed to be having a blast. Pulling up a slew of water Pokemon that were delighted to cling around her ride Pokemon and Poplio, interacting with her almost fondly. And then, wah! Ash's head twisted quickly, eyes focusing on the figure lurking beneath the water as Lily struggled to pull whatever was trying to pull her in. Without sound, Lapras raced over, gliding over the water and towards the startled and struggling blonde. Ash barely had the chance to see the Milotic leap out of the water, gracefully jumping high above any of the Pokemon. And straight to Lily. Poplio, balloon. The same orb that had popped just moments before swung directly towards Lily, the bubble nearly 5x the size of the previous one pushed against Lily. The bubble pushed her back and into the Lapras's neck, still transparent enough that Ash could see the slight panic on her face. As soon as the bubble hit, the large Milotic slammed into the opposing side, shifting both Lily and Lapras back by a few feet but still managing to keep the Milotic away from actually hitting Lily or Lapras. In only a few seconds, the water type was flung back into the water, the line of the fishing rod still attached just as the bubble popped. With that, the fishing line snapped with a loud plink, letting Milotic dash off without any more problems. Ash quickly rushed over to Lily's side, easing her back into her ride Pokemon seat before she ever fell back. His Lapras tried to reach over to help as well, slightly miffed when Ash placed his unoccupied hand on her face and stopped her from helping. Otanashi Ononoko Pokemon Ga Chato Kawaii. He brushed the side of the water type's neck, calming Lapras just in time to turn towards Lily. You alright? She was shaking in the seat, a faraway and blank look on her face. She blinked, once, twice, and forced her shaking to stop. Ash hummed in worry when she nodded. Okay class, why don't we take a break before heading back? Seems like we had a bit more of a surprise than we bargained for. Kukui smiled softly, shifting his glance over all the students. Come on, our resting point is just a bit off to the right. The students rushed over excitedly, making sure to brush by Lily to give her a grin or a thumbs up, obviously trying to be encouraging. Thanks for the help, Lana, Lily called out mutely, face flushing slightly. Aeolpalikia, Lana grinned, leaning over to bump Lily's shoulder. No problem. With a gentle smile, Lana pulled forward, easing her way beside Mallow and letting Lily linger behind beside Ash. With Pikachu by his side and Lapras crooning over Lily, she managed to bear the most painful smile Ash had ever seen. You did great, Lily. Her eyes darted away, tracing the waves of the ocean. I want to be better. Lily pulled ahead, gently nudging her ride Pokemon forward and just barely managing to squeeze herself between her female classmates. I want pets from the blonde, Pikachu stated bluntly, nudging his wet self onto Ash's lap. She looks like she would give really soft pets. It'll take some time for her to get used to touching Pokemon. I can wait. She seems so upset. Lapras crooned, twisting her neck to glance at Ash. Are you going to help her? We can try, girl, he laid a hand against her skin. We can try. It didn't take long for the lot of them to approach the small tiny shore of the island, the kids stretching and rushing about excitedly as their Pokemon followed along. Ash grinned fondly. Oh yeah, he could get used to this. Alright class, we have 15 minutes, be sure to stretch out and eat your snacks before we hit the water. Kukui waved one of the bags in the air. We wouldn't want your food dropping into the salty water now, would we? No, Professor. The students called out exasperatedly. Kiawe grabbed the bags and instantly darted back, handing them over to their respective owners without a fuss. Oto-sama, Ash grinned, raising a brow. There is no better word for kukui, I think. What does that mean? Sophocles waved his hand in the air. Is it like an insult? Ooh. Can you teach us some Kanto insults, Ash? Lana grinned, shaking her arms in excitement. Please don't. Kiawe sighed, Mallow agreeing with a pointed look. It's not a bad word. Ash corrected. And I don't curse, so you won't be getting a word from me. I can teach you. Pikachu on the other hand he sighed dramatically, tilting his head forward in exasperation. As one, the kids laughed. Quiet clearly not believing him. The sad thing is that you aren't joking. Lapras huffed, mockingly supportive as she patted one of her flippers in the shallow water. What can I say, people think I'm too cute to cuss. Pikachu grinned, throwing his brows up almost mischievously. Or they think that you're such a tiny threat they don't bother. Lapras shrugged, gliding back into the deep end. Hey! Before Ash could say another word, Pikachu chased after her, hopping onto her back to argue. So Mallow briefly paused, waiting for him to look over. How did you get Lapras? And what did you mean by restrictions? Nay Ash smiled, as the students turned to face him. When I was younger, maybe 10 or 11, Lapras was very hard to find, and were close to being extinct. In Kanto, it was practically illegal to catch one. Then how did you manage? That seems like something they would have to report? Kiawe quirked a brow, leaning against Sophocles for a brief second. Yeah. Wouldn't they confiscate it or something? Oh, they could have. Ash flicked her Pokeball up. But Lapras was actually entrusted to me by Nurse Joy. Interesting, why would they trust you with an endangered Pokemon just like that? Rotom floated forward. Isn't it highly irresponsible of a nurse to provide a child with a Pokemon that is on the bridge of extinction? He's a princess, of course, they knew he would help. Lana argued, picking up a stick on the sand to poke the floating electric type. But why, wouldn't they choose a more experienced trainer instead? Lily pointed out. Why not just set it free instead? Lapras went to a nurse under very unfortunate circumstances. Ash soothed, causing the group to look at him once more. She was very young when I found her, washed up on the beach and being bullied by a bunch of JRKS. There was a brief silence as the kids turned to look at the shoreline to the Lapras delightedly annoying Pikachu. What happened? Mallow tilted her head. I don't really remember all too well admittedly. He chuckled nervously, scratching at his cheek. But they were kicking her and I couldn't let that happen, so I helped out. She didn't like most people at first, but she settled fairly well with me that the nurse decided I was the best choice. A small O formed on each of their faces, leaning over to look around him and stare at Lapras. That's just like how I found Poplio. Lana pointed at him, shaking her other fist excitedly. I found it on the beach too, being bullied by some JRKS. I couldn't let it be afraid of humans, so I took them in? Ash smiled. That's awesome, Lana, I'm sure Poplio appreciates it. Lana grinned, cheeks flushing a faint pink as she puffed her chest up. Is Lapras also the Pokemon who took in Eevee? Mallow pointed at his hat. Didn't you say your Pokemon took Eevee in? No way, Lapras doesn't have the patience to hatch an egg. Ash peeked up, watching as Eevee groggily dashed his tail in front of his eyes. She's too cold too, I would have died. Or become a glacian. Ash pointed out with an unimpressed look, carefully plucking Eevee from his spot. How long have you been up? Like 5 minutes. Eevee admitted, wrangling his body onto the floor and shaking his fur. Ash, I want Baba. Well, Ash looked at Mallow, grinning slightly. I guess it's time to see his dad. Expectantly, the kids leaned forward to look at Eevee, eyes tracing up when Ash plucked a Pokeball from his belt. Come on out, Ash tossed the ball up, dramatically. Bulbasaur. Instantly, the Pokeball snapped open midair, the small form of the Kanto starter appearing a burst of white. Green vines shot to the floor, burying themselves in the sand just as Bulbasaur landed with a soft thump. Red eyes glanced at the students, ears twitching for a second as a small friendly face appeared on his grass type. Hey kids, you must be Ash's class. Bulbasaur raised a vine in greeting. It's great to meet you all. Baba. Eevee crowed, racing over to nuzzle into the grass type. I missed you. Ah. A Bulbasaur. Mallow squeaked, I've never seen one in person. Wow, he's so big. Is that because of age or diet? How fast can he run? I wonder what his stats. How strong is he? Have you had him for long? Wow. I've only ever seen Bulbasaurs in books before. Bulbasaur, the seed Pokemon, and the Kanto grass starter, Rotom cut them off, rushing forward with a quick entry. For some time after its birth, it grows by gaining nourishment from the seed on its back. Wow! They crowed in awe, glancing over the grass type nuzzling the small normal type. We'll have more time to introduce each other, Ash placated. But for now, we should get going, our break's gonna end just about dash. Alright kids, let's head back onto the mainland and start getting ready to write up your reports. Now. He grinned. Groans escaped their throats, but just like before they very easily began shuffling away, picking up any trash or mess that they or their Pokémon left behind. A lively bunch. Bulbasaur grinned. This'll be fun. You're telling me, Ash snorted. Come on bud, let's head back, I think you'll enjoy the sun over here. The meeting was rather short-lived. Alola, fair students. Ash sighed heavily, eyebrow twitching as Bulbasaur and Eevee let out loud huffs of annoyance. When will you ditch them? Bulbasaur grumbled. Can we have one region? Oh no. Lana murmured softly, eyes hyper-focused on the Lapras and Whalemare caught in the now floating net. What is with you people? Mallow cried out immediately after, fists clenching by her side as the Pokémon Y them let out a slew of barks and yelps. Well dash. F off, no one wants to hear you. Pikachu yelled from the net. Wait. Pikachu, why are you there? Ash called out incredulously, head shooting up in surprise. I decided to have my own vacation, why do you think I am up here, Satoshi? Pikachu gripped the net and tugged, teeth gnawing on the rope. Quiet Pikachu. Meowth snapped. Heads up school twerps. We've appointed Lapras and Whalemare as Team Rocket's ride Pokémon. And there's nothing you can do about it. Jessie snickered just as the rocket balloon pulled away. Stop. Kiawe barked, immediately rushing forward. Lana. Ash called, forcing the water-type trainer to pause as everyone raced after the balloon. I need you and Poplio to help out here, none of the others have a water Pokémon. But how? She waved her arms aimlessly. We'll figure it out, come on. Together they broke out into a sprint, easily catching up to the other students as the rocket slowed to a stop. Seeing his chance, Ash stopped in the shallow water, holding out an arm just long enough for Bulbasaur to crawl off him and use him as a springboard. Is that a Bulbasaur? Hey, no fair. Who said the twerp could bring his Pokémon back? Apparently the bimbo writing this story. Bulbasaur used Razor Leaf. Bulbasaur grunted in midair, claws darting forward for a second before he moved himself forward, letting a surge of Razor Leaf dart out and towards the balloon. Before they had a chance to contest, the leaves snipped away at the rope, a loud snapping sound escaping for a brief moment and forcing the rockets higher into the air for a brief moment. Except the rocks. Lily gasped, pointed towards the area just beneath them. Ash gritted his teeth for a moment, he knew that both Lapras and Pikachu could ease their way down, but there was no guarantee about the ride Pokémon. Poplio, balloon. Ash glanced back in surprise, watching Lana race forward as Poplio hit the water. The water type practically split into the water, causing ripples and foam to lay in their wake. It seemed as if Poplio was running through the world with no restraints. They easily landed on a rock just a bit before the actual rock platform, breathing in sharply as a bubble began to form. Holy Mew. Ash breathed out, eyes wide at the balloon that spread over the aisle easily. The Pokémon hit the balloon and landed into the water, shrieks of surprise echoing their voice as the sound of splashing easily overtook the noise. That's impossible. It reached nearly 400% of its prior form. Rotom cried, rushing back to Ash. This is illogical. Holy sheet dash, Bulbasaur breathed out, ears perked wide in surprise. Now Poplio, use Bubble Beam. Take this. Ash watched a stream of bubbles hit the air balloon and just turned away as it exploded. Okay. Maybe we can wait a few minutes till the Pokémon gain their senses back. Who was that? Kukui looked at him in surprise. That's a long story. Ash shrugged. It didn't take long for them to all get back to the main shore. The Pokémon were quick to gain their bearings and race them home with chirps of excitement. From what Ash could gather, despite the near-death-defying fall, all the ride Pokémon seemed more delighted by the bounce of the bubble. Even Pikachu, despite being grumpy at the soak, admitted it was far more fun than it obviously looked. Alright class, go ahead and head home, we'll discuss any assignments tomorrow. Kukui waved them off. Get home safely everyone. Ash watched the students break off one by one, excitedly talking amongst themselves with little babbles of excitement. The Kanto trainer let out a huff of air, rubbing his neck tiredly as all his Pokémon mingled amongst themselves. Ash, you can head home to you know. Kukui nodded at him, shuffling his bag up. I don't think I'll be needing any recounts of today with Rotom's recording. I will be going over some more safety procedures with the students later this week. Sounds fair, Ash bobbed his head tiredly. Before I go I was wondering if you could help me out with something real quick? Kukui blinked, nodding his head and turning to face him, just as Ash rummaged around his bag and around Roulette to reach a paper he had stacked in. Quietly, he pulled out a printed sheet of paper that Rotom had so helpfully pulled up for him, showcasing a nearby apartment. At least, that's what Rotom had said. An apartment? Kukui blinked slowly, leaning forward to look at the page. You're looking to settle down? Sort of? Ash grinned sheepishly. It'll be way cheaper than living at a hotel, and according to Rotom, it's way closer to the school. They mentioned I could get a house too, but seems kind of like a waste if you're only staying a full school year, right? Kukui quirked a brow, grinning when Ash sheepishly ducked his head. That and well? I dunno, buying a house seems like a huge commitment to stay, and I'm pretty flighty as is so dash. Don't worry, Ash, I know exactly what you mean. I was a trainer once too. The professor shook his head fondly, picking up the piece of paper that Ash had in his grip. Glossing it over, the professor had a contemplative look on his face. Actually, he folded the paper neatly, handing it to Ash with a grin. I might know a place if you're interested. Ash tilted his head, blinking slowly. Oh? To be fair, Ash wasn't sure what to expect. He and Kukui had been off for the day to move into and settle down, not that Ash had much to begin with honestly, but it was a nice sentiment. Even if the professor had given Ash a tour of the house before, Kukui hadn't seemed to mind when Ash would pause to ask where something was, which was great, because Ash may have known plenty about Pokemon, but living at home had definitely escaped him for a while. What's this? Ash pointed to a set of ladders. It's the loft, Kukui waved up, letting Ash clamber onto the loft as he sat on the ladders. I don't really use much of this, I'm a little too tall and tend to hit the ceiling. My estimation is that the loft is roughly 6 feet 2 inches tall, give or take a few centimeters. Rotom beeped as they rounded the loft. Roughly 188 centimeters tall, Ash stands at 5 feet 4 inches or 163 centimeters, meaning that Ash has roughly 20 centimeters of free space in which he would not harm himself even while jumping. With Professor Kukui standing at 6 feet 2 inches, it'd be nearly impossible for him to stand comfortably without slouching. Geez, Rotom, just call me short, would ya? Ash sighed when Pikachu and Bulbasaur snickered. Genetically speaking, you are at least 2 inches shorter than the average height of a Kantonian. Rotom tilted their body. Meaning that by societal standard, you are on the shorter side of the spectrum. Kiawe, despite being a year younger than yourself, is standing at 5 feet 9 inches and still growing, whereas you seem to have become stagnant. Rotom. Oh boy, Kukui laughed. Well, if you like the loft, why not take it? The couch is a pull-out bed, but I'm sure we can get you a bed to fit the loft if needed. Ash blinked and nodded, smiling sheepishly. Might need to? I mean, the couch is great, but nothing beats a bed. Kukui nodded, laughing. Come on, I can show you the mall area and you can pick out a bed. I got to run and get some groceries anyway. It's no trouble? None at all, come on, it's a bit of a walk from here, but we can take the Tauros Chargers. Ash blinked as Kukui slid down. Thankfully, he seemed to not be the only one confused. They let their Tauros run wild? Bulbasaur blinked as he hopped off. They have Tauros racers in the school. Pikachu chirped at his friend, scrambling down and perching on Bulbasaur's bulb. The kids actually ride M during their lunch break sometimes. How different are they from Kanto Tauros? Very, Ash nodded, and glanced back up at the professor, walking out the door before closing it behind him. What's the difference between a Tauros Charger and a Tauros Racer? Tauros Chargers are meant to be used in the streets. Kukui smiled, leading Ash through the hill. There are special lanes for the Tauroses, mostly to not cause accidents, and there's only a few here and there, but it's worth the price in my opinion. These are specially trained Tauros too, so they're far tamer than the racers and wild Tauros. And people they just use M? Yup, Kukui paused by the streetlight, turning to smile at Ash as they waited for the crosswalk sign. Sometimes they use their own rideable Pokemon, Mudstale, Stoutlands, the occasional Arcanine, but it's common practice to use Tauros Chargers here. Interesting, I assume that it greatly reduces the use for vehicles, making Alola one of the cleanest regions there is. Rotom swung by, showcasing a chart on their screen. By any standpoint, despite being heavily related to Unova, Alolan pollution doesn't even reach a quarter of its larger counterpart. Unova has clean areas. Ash hummed, arguing. But Unova is definitely bigger than Alola. I could walk around the entire island before I could go city to city in Alola. That big, eh? Kukui hummed. I've only been there at conferences, never battled the league there myself. Though, they weren't exactly accepting foreign trainers in my time. They just reopened like 2, maybe 3 years ago? Ash smiled. I didn't really battle seriously at the time, it was kind of a Vaki league, but boy, do Anovians take things way too seriously. I don't understand the term Vaki league, Rotom buzzed as they crossed the street. By all accounts, performing in the league is still working, especially considering you need to beat at least 6 qualified gyms, participate in a league, as well as traveling and food fees, you'd be in a constant battle. It's still working, Kukui agreed, nodding at Rotom as he led them to a small shack just off the road. But a Vaki league, or a vacation league, is widely known in the trainer community as a slacker league, in which the trainer still participates but at a laid-back intensity. Nothing ever rises to an all-in league. That's entirely illogical. Not when you're running yourself ragged. Ash hummed, pausing as Kukui left to go talk to someone. Training and battling is still fun, even when working, but battling at the intensity or at full strength each time gets tiresome since all you're doing is overstressing yourself and your Pokemon. I needed a break, so I decided to slack off a bit. Sure, it made a bad impression on the Anovians, but I didn't care. It was the first time since I started as a trainer that I took a Vaki league. Pikachu and Bulbasaur nodded, though Pikachu had a strange look on his face. It is not in my database. Rotom buzzed out in frustration. Easy Rotom. Ash laughed. It's an off-brand term, it's not entirely acceptable to the wide world audience. Many people who go to see gym battles and leagues are under the impression that trainers there want to work their hardest to win. We don't want everyone to know that we're working with a half deck. Besides, Kukui walked forward grinning. It's a good boost for beginning trainers who believe that they are strong for experienced trainers as well. They get a little confidence boost while also getting a slice of humble pie with a different trainer not holding back. But considering the trainer's admissions, wouldn't the watchers know that it was being held back? Rotom frowned, swiveling to Ash. If you had been in 4 prior leagues, wouldn't they have looked you up to see your accomplishments? Oh, I'm sure. Ash laughed. No one did because I seemed like a new trainer, so no one bothered to double back and check to see if I had any accomplishments. It was only long after that I received a flood of messages from Anovians getting mad at me for holding back, which, fair. Most trainers don't understand that not every trainer is going to give them their all. Kukui huffed out. Sounds condescending. Rotom shook their body, turning to Ash. Is it not very insulting? It can be, Ash nodded. For a beginning trainer, more experienced trainers can generally understand that not every trainer is interested in giving their all in a standard battle. Especially if you don't want to show your hand. Rotom hummed, pulling back and buzzing in question as Kukui chuckled, leading them all to arraign Tauros. Well, hop on, Kukui motioned. I've got a message to head to the lab real quick, and sadly it's a bit more urgent than intended. Should I wait at the plaza for you? Ash looked on in concern. No, I don't really know how long this will take. You don't mind having takeout for dinner, do you? Kukui sheepishly shrugged. That's fine. Ash smiled. I'll pick up some things from the mart as well. If you need anything specific, just send me a text. You don't have to dash. I'm living in your home for free, Professor, Ash pouted, placing his hands on his hips. The least I could do is get groceries. Kukui blinked, then huffed in amusement. Fine, he rolled his eyes, hiding a smile when Ash perked up happily. I'll send a list, but we'll go again another day so we can carry more. I'll just send a small list of essentials, agreed? Sir, yes sir. The trainer saluted cheekily, his Pokemon copying along with a Vine and Paw respectively. Have fun at the lab. Doubtful, Kukui drawled, ruffling Ash's hair. Tauros knows where to go, just let me know when you're heading back home and I'll see if I can swing around to pick you up. Fine with me, Ash nodded, picking up his 2 Pokemon who squeaked. See ya, Professor. Later Ash, Kukui saluted back, jogging off in a seemingly random direction. Ash hummed, scrambling onto the Tauros and warbling slightly at the bull. Off to the mall, right? The bull Pokemon stretched out, starting off as a fast-paced trot. Gonna get some malasadas? What's that? Bulbasaur blinked. Is it food? Ah, tourist. Oh yeah, Ash chuckled, nodding. We've only been on Alola for about a week. How neat, Tauros trilled, taking a turn. A speaking tourist, don't get speakers round here. There's a few we've met, Pikachu grinned, darting up to Tauros' head. Not all of them took the time to learn like Ash has. Don't brag, Dash. Very neat, Tauros chuckled. Not many round here, though plenty can understand basics. Really? Ash blinked, leaning forward. How so? New tourist, Tauros snorted, a grin appearing on his face. You need to learn that yourself. Ash pouted as his Pokemon laughed, Tauros trot going into a hard charge. They appeared at the mall in no time, Tauros trotting to a small resting area and laying down on a bed of grass. Thanks, Tauros. Ash called out, earning a very casual moo of response. The four trotted into the mall, mostly glancing around curiously at the new and very odd areas there. I can't read any of this, Bulbasaur grumbled, glaring at a sign. It looks like a garbled mess to me. It says Moo Moo Ice Cream, Ash smiled. I'm telling you, learning the language has its benefits. I know how to talk and understand, that's good enough for me. Until you want something by yourself. Pikachu snickered, paw on the board as he carefully dragged it across. Vanilla, lemon, chocolate, hey, what's this word? Ash squinted. Poke beans? It's a treat for Pokemon in Alola. Rotom offered. There's an island where trainers can go to grow and make their own pokebeans. However, it's widely known that not many trainers get any, as a flying type is needed to arrive at the island. It's a bit bogus if you ask me, but shops sell them at a fairly cheap price. Ash blinked, turning to watch one of his students walk up to them, his Pokemon by his side. The Pokebean ice cream is generally marketed for Pokemon, Sophocles offered with a grin. But I hear it's rather tasty. Sophocles? Ash smiled, moving to stand. Nice to see you. You doing some shopping? Sophocles flushed, looking away. I guess, he shrugged. Just came by for some ice cream is all. What are you doing here? Ash blinked, clapping his hands. I'm actually here to get a bed, and some groceries for the house. So you're staying in Alola? The tech-oriented kid turned to grin at him, walking forward in excitement. The entire school year? Yeah, Ash chuckled. Seems like a neat little place, and I promised I'd try to stay for the year. I can help you out if you'd like? Sophocles then puffed up his chest, grinning smugly. I know them all, inside and out. And I can help you find the best bedding material possible for someone of your age and size. I can do that as well, Rotom buzzed irritably. But you don't have the scientifics behind it. Sophocles argued, grinning. I have a mass amount of data to prove what's good and what's not to mention budget necessities as well. I got you beat Rotom Dex. We'll see about that. Rotom huffed, swiftly turning. I can lead around the whole map by a simple download, along with any smaller areas that could have quality items as well. I can also look up statistical reviews and well-marked areas as well. I guess it's on then. I guess so. The duo turned away from each other, though Ash felt as if there was a hidden agenda beneath it. You know, I wouldn't mind getting both of you to help. He added sheepishly. It's always better to get a few extra opinions on something you know nothing about. That's ridiculous. No way. A pair of rivals, Bulbasaur hummed. Highlighted in nerd, Pikachu nodded. The duo looked at each other and giggled wildly. Be nice, Ash warned the two but sighed anyway. Well, let's go to the first place then? I can't exactly duplicate and we can get it over with much faster. Both Sophocles and Rotom took a second, still glaring at each other before turning to Ash with cheeky grins. Of course, Ash. You got it. Ash rolled his eyes as they followed the arguing duo towards the inside of the mall, haphazardly keeping an ear out as his Pokemon ran about. Eevee had popped out of his Pokeball to run to Bulbasaur, then to the nearest shop of TV screens. They sure do like watching television, Rotom noted as Togedemaru squeaked and rolled to follow. Of course they do, Sophocles nodded, holding out a device. Most Pokemon are fascinated by the flashing lights and all. It'd be far too easy to distract them with some cartoons. I find them incredibly childish. Why yeah? Well, so do I. Hey, I actually like cartoons, Ash chuckled, raising his hands. Rotom, can you go round up the others? Please? We should hurry up before the mall closes. The mall won't close for approximately 6.2 hours, Rotom buzzed, showing off his clock. But whatever you say, boss. Drop the attitude, Ash chided teasingly, turning to Sophocles. Whatcha got there, Soph? It's all my data on Togedemaru. Sophocles puffed up proudly. I use this to track it, and set it into my patented Togedemaru training program. That's so cool. Ash smiled. I'm guessing she's a tough cookie? Sort of. Sophocles chuckled. See, I'm trying to get her more active, but she trails off a bit too much. And I'm not the most active myself, it's hard to follow the mindset. May I? Ash pointed to the device, smiling when Sophocles readily handed it over, leaning over his arm to point at certain areas. What's this? That's her discharge meter. Sophocles rattled off. I know electric types have a specialized pouch to shoot off electricity, so it has to be a muscle that needs exercise, you know? So maybe if we train we can make that potency all the stronger. Ash barely heard the faint ringing before a door slammed shut, startling the duo back into each other. What? Someone yells, and Ash could feel the literal walls closing in. Well, not literal, but it hasn't been too long since he's been trapped and there were so many people here. The panic that his Pokemon are gone, oh Mew, where's Pikachu, and he's practically alone doesn't help him settle down in the slightest, and it's only Sophocles' harsh tug that drags his attention away. This isn't normal. Sophocles has a hard frown on his face. Let's go ask the guard and see what's wrong. He can feel his breathing picking up, forcing it down under a prelude of calm as he sends a small smile to Sophocles. Yeah dash, easy breaths, you're right Soph, let's go check it dash. The lights cut out. Out. Breathe, 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 breathe. The panic around him rises, and Ash can't focus on his own breathing amidst the screams. Something crashes into him, and Ash can't even muster the courage to think straight and hit whatever is on him, only falling to the floor and a strangled yelp. The lights flicker on. Ash flicks up his cap, blinking at the near tears in Sophocles' eyes as he babbles almost incoherently. Sorry Ash. The ginger JRKS himself up, patting at his shorts before he reaches out and helps Ash up. I just sorta dash. Panicked. Ash huffed, rubbing his chest as he glanced around to see most people look around frantically. Don't worry about it, that wasn't the best situation to be in. Really startling, Sophocles agrees, a touch too fast, turning away from him and trying to pretend he wasn't rubbing at his eyes. What the tapu happened? Don't dash, the lights flicker causing another cry of surprise before they flicker back on, no. Sophocles is shaking, and Ash can't blame him in the slightest. He's just glad he has the younger male to focus on and not the lack of his partners. Nope, not thinking that. We should check with the security guard. Sophocles heaves out, scratching at his head. And maybe we can leave through an emergency exit or something. Our Pokemon dash, Ash starts when he sees the familiar signs of electricity dancing uselessly across metal. We can't leave dash. We'd have to go the long way around, Sophocles frowns. The doors are poke-proof to stop any attacks. Does this really happen often? Ash blinked. The only poke-proof places I know are usually poke hospitals or poke centers, gyms too. Not that I know of, Sophocles shrugged, frowning. I've never really collected data on that. Another flicker of the light, and Ash blindly reaches for the small ginger male, tensing until the light steadied again. Soph had clung to his arm, blinking uneasily as his eyes darted around, not bothering to ease his grip, despite the lights being back on. That's gotta be a breaker problem. The boy swallows roughly, glancing up at Ash. I imagine one of the fuses probably broke, making this a false alarm and what's causing all this flickering. I don't know what that means. Ash admitted sheepishly, shrugging. It's part of the wiring in the building, Sophocles explains easily. Breakers and fuses are fundamentally the same when they just help redirect and interrupt the flow of electricity. The breakers are meant to stop an overflow of electricity dash. But since it's probably broken, the electricity caused a shortage and trapped us in here? The ginger boy grinned, nodding at Ash. But what about the fuse? It probably popped at the electricity overflow. Sophocles tapped his chin. It's an easy fix, relatively, if what I think is wrong. Do you think you can fix it? Ash blinked. Oh yeah, no big deal. Sophocles waved a hand, bringing up his phone in time with another flicker of lights, fingers tightening around the rubber before he eased himself and scrolled through a basic image of some breakers. If they use standard breakers it'll be fine, if not, I could probably redirect the electricity to a neutral zone and lift the emergency protocol. How do we even go about doing that? Ash huffed, tapping his chin. We'd need to go to the highest power grid area in the mall, Sophocles shrugged, still tapping at his phone. That'd be the central hub and, wait, did you say fix? Ash grinned as the smaller boy blinked, ignoring the nerves fraying in his hands. Yeah, come on, Ash nodded. I'm not the type to sit around and wait for someone else to save me. But we could get in trouble. Sophocles flailed, moving forward to clutch his jacket with one fist. If they catch us, they could blame it on us. Why? For fixing it? Ash raised a brow at Sophocles' hesitant stare, softening slightly. Tell you what, we can go to the security guard and ask where the central power thingy is at, that way, someone knows our intentions. Sides, we can meet up with our Pokemon up at the roof. The ginger bit his lip, eyes screwing shut as the lights flickered again. Ash frowned and looked around at the people beginning to sit down, phones out as they tapped away the security guard walking up to them. Listen, I know this is scary, Ash glanced at Sophocles, blinking slowly. And it's really out of our depth here, but we can still try. The worst thing to happen is that the emergency protocol doesn't lift up at all. Or the entire system gets fried cause of my meddling. Soph breathed. What if I can't do it? I dunno, Ash shook his head, tapping at his phone. You seem to do a lot of work, and I sure as Giratina don't get it at all. But the worst scenario won't get anyone hurt, we can do this. Sophocles blinked, dark eyes turning to look at him. We? Yeah, Ash smiled. You think I'd leave you to go up there all by yourself? Well, a dash. Excuse me, the security guard moved forward with a raised hand, a look of concern drawn over his face. Are you both all right? Just fine, Ash nodded, waving up to the flickering lights as Sophocles gripped his arm harder. A little freaked, but that's expected. Yeah, the poor guy sighed, knocking his cap up a bit to scratch his head. We don't know what's happening, and with the electricity fizzing out like this we can't get a guaranteed connection. We do have an ETA of 3 hours for our outsource team to come and fix everything up. Isn't that a long time? Ash frowned as the guard forlornly shrugged his shoulders. Unknown, this hasn't happened before, at least not without major reason. Ash hummed, glancing at the closed door where he could just feel his Pokémon behind. He hesitated and glanced back at the guard. Listen, I have my support Pokémon on the other side of this door, I can't exactly handle being away from them for 3+ hours. Is there any way you'll let us try and fix this? The man looked immensely sympathetic, wincing minutely. Sir? The lights flickered again and the man looked up, breathing out slowly. Our main security system is down, I have no idea how to go about fixing that, let alone letting a customer try. Sounds like the main grid just needs to be reset, Sophocles spoke up, shakily standing. If we shut that down, it'll get the security system running again. The central hub is located on the roof. The guard nodded, pulling up a small map on his phone, pointing at a small room. If you can get there, the main electrical grid is up there. Thanks, we owe you one. Ash grinned. Don't worry about it. The guard flushed, waving a hand. If you two can get the doors up, that's all we really need. Got it. Sophocles nodded as they both led to the door where their Pokémon were out. There was yelling, pounding as Pikachu and Eevee clearly slammed into the door, Bulbasaur yelling at them, asking them to relax and Togedemaru's crying. Open you piece of sh dash. Pikachu. Alibaba, Ash is stuck, we gotta save him, we gotta. What are they saying? Sophocles asked and Ash gave him a small smile. Guys, Ash called out, projecting his voice slightly as his Pokémon immediately clambered to the door. Ash, is everything alright? Bulbasaur hissed. What the F is happening, Satoshi? Ash, I don't like this. What's happening? Take it easy you guys, the Kantonian crooned gently. Where's Rotom? Present, the Pokédex beeped. I've been downloading any data I could through these electrical blips and deduced that there was a problem with the main grid. Yeah, we figured that out too. Sophocles frowned. The guard said we could reach it via the roof. Logically, many companies in Alola keep it there to avoid their electrical grids from being corrupted by floods. Anyway, Ash cut the duo off, shooting an amused look at Sophocles. You think you can lead everyone up to the roof, Rotom? Calculating. There were a few moments of beeps. Affirmative, we cannot take the usual route, but I believe we can reach there fairly easily. Great, guys, I need you all to follow Rotom and head to the roof, me and Soph will be following behind as best we can. Assuming we can, Sophocles corrected. I dunno about Ash, but I can't fit into any vents, if we need to. Rotom, do you think you can reset the main electrical grid? Presumably, yes, the machine buzzed, displeased. However, many grids usually require human hands. As a Rotom, I may be able to, but there's never a guarantee. I'll fry it if I need to, Pikachu growled. Try not to, Ash chuckled. Okay, everyone, we have a plan, let's go. Right, Sophocles echoed, a firm nod of his head as he pulled up the map, glancing at it eerily close. Let's go this way, we need to keep note that all the doors are possibly closed. Right, Ash smiled, following behind the teen quickly as he led them through. The frustration from before doubled, with each flicker of light, found the two teens running into more doors than they could count. Ash had gotten far too jittery at not being near his partners that both Bounsweet and Rowlet had thankfully come out to keep him company. We should be close by, Sophocles huffed in frustration, pointing at a closed door. But that door is in the way, Atapu Bulu, this is frustrating. From where we started, there's no way. We're stuck. Ash winced, glancing at the door closely and noting a small amount of space in between. Just enough for a hand? Hey, Soph, come here real quick, Ash beckoned him forward, fingers darting just beneath the space of the door. He lightly tugged it up, feeling the grind of the gears hold it furiously in place, pushing back with the same amount of pressure in an effort to stay down. What are you, Dash? Are you sure the staircase is on the other side of this door? Ash glanced at him. Sophocles swallowed but nodded his head, brow furrowing in determination. Positive. The ginger gripped his phone. Why? On the count of 3, I need you to run through the door, okay? At the look of absolute confusion, Ash laughed. I can lift this up, not for long, but I can do it. But Dash. We'll talk about it later, Ash hushed, tensing his muscles and glancing at his Pokémon. All three of you are going to run to get through and I'll follow just behind, okay? Okay. Sophocles walked up, preparing to run as Ash counted down. 1. He tensed his muscles, making sure his fingers were wrapped tightly beneath the door. 2. Ash lifted his chin up slightly, shoulders tensing back. 3. With the help of Aura, Ash jerked the door up as best he could, hissing at the strain it was immediately pulling. Out of the corner of his eyes, the trio immediately ran past him, safely darting to the other side of the door. Ash heaved out slowly, breathing through clenched teeth before he moved to follow, jerking forward as the door slipped from his fingers in an effort to follow. It fell a lot faster than Ash anticipated and probably would have been heavily bruised, if not broken his leg, had Sophocles and Rowlet not grabbed his shirt and yanked him towards them, narrowly missing the clank of metal. Holy shit! Sophocles breathed out shakily. Don't ever do that again. Heaving out, Ash let out an airy laugh. Don't huff, plan on it. Come on, Sophocles tugged, pointing somewhere down the hall. We're almost there. Okay, Ash wheezed, glancing as both Rowlet and Bounsweet struggled to help him up, small grunts squeaking out of both their bodies. It wasn't the fastest or the heaviest of things Ash had lifted, nor the most pressuring. But Ash had not really prepared himself fully for what he had gone through. He made a mental note to not underestimate some of the things here. Regaining his shaky breath, Ash twisted in place, lifting himself to his knees, then standing on his own 2 feet. He gave Sophocles a shaky thumbs up, the younger teen grinning back nervously before he beckoned the group forward. How long will it take you? Ash asked. Resetting the main grid shouldn't be too hard, Sophocles shook his head. Just tedious, give me 30 minutes. Is that a lot of time? I think it's the standard. Sophocles shrugged. I could do it a lot faster if I knew the system but it's all new, I get it. Ash nodded, aura flaring as he felt the familiar brush of energy. Come on, our Pokémon are waiting for us. How do you dash? Kanto secret. Ash winked, earning a blink then a burst of laughter. Rowlet and Bounsweet chittered in tune, rushing past him through open doors. Only to be immediately impaled by a shadow ball. Ash's eyes widened, Bounsweet shrieking as they were launched back while Rowlet narrowly scraped by with his wings. The dual grass type snarled, darting off to the side just like Ash taught them, leaving the field open so Ash could see. Team Rocket! Sophocles gasped as Ash rolled his eyes painfully hard. He and his Pokémon had them outnumbered 7-3. Drat, it's the Toop. 'Bout time. Pikachu snarked tensely. Seems like Wobbuffet has a few new tricks up his sleeves. Don't got no sleeves. The blue psychic type croaked out, laughing. Wait. Sophocles blinked, pointing at them. You're the idiots who shut down the main power grid, I bet. Probably to steal Pokémon, Ash grunted in agreement, whistling sharply as Pikachu darted back to him. Did someone ask something? The pinkette of the trio grinned. We're here to find out. Noble answers are what we're all about, the lavender-headed male smiled smugly. The beauty so radiant the flowers and moon hide in shame, a single flower of evil dash. Q. Hey! The Mimikyu sharply cut off the trio's new motto, sending off a shadow ball towards Pikachu, his partner jumping up and slamming it back with equal fervor, barely missing the false mouse Pokémon. Bulbasaur roared, slamming his 2 paws down and sending out a solar beam, only for Wobbuffet to cut in and deflect it quickly with a shimmering mirror coat. Eevee chittered, fur pricking up as he jumped into the direct line of sight for the overpowered solar beam. A purple screen appeared around him, stopping the yellow beam of light quickly. The 3 Pokémon darted back with a hiss, snarling as Mimikyu and Wobbuffet hissed at them. Mimikyu! Jessie hissed. You can't interrupt our motto. It's sacred. Yeah. If yous want to be a part of our team, yous need to follow the motto. Sophocles, what is Togedemaru's ability? Rotom asked softly, floating behind Ash from where he was originally hiding. You alright? Ash asked, holding out his hand to hold his partner close. Togedemaru has lightning rod, the ginger grinned. Way ahead of you. Huh? Ash, Pikachu needs to use electricity. Rotom buzzed at him, their plastic appendage smacking his shoulder. Wobbuffet has mirror coat, Ash frowned. We can't dash. We got this, Ash. Sophocles hummed. Ash's face twitched. If Sophocles was planning to use the same trick as when they first met, it'd be nearly impossible to break through Wobbuffet's moveset. Still, Pikachu used Thunderbolt. Pikachu's ear twitched, and like the wonderful partner he was, proceeded to do so without hesitation. Mimikyu dodged, rolling over and sending 3, quick succession Shadow Ball, nailing the electric type in the stomach. Pikachu grunted, yowling in surprise as he was launched back, Bulbasaur using his vines to catch the electric type. Jessie sneered. Wobbuffet, mirror coat. Wabba. The psychic type darted forward, coat shimmering and sending back the electric type move with double the damage. Ash gritted his teeth, summoning a small aura shield around them in an effort to ease the blow. Togedemaru, now! On it, pal! The mouse squeaked, rolling forward and raising her spines. The thunderbolt curved and Ash watched as the steel electric type giggled. Now zing zap. TCH. The trio scowled. That won't do anything, Wobbuffet mirror coat. The small mouse Pokemon rolled forward with a speed Ash wasn't sure she normally had, small spines doing nothing to deter her motion. Wobbuffet grunted, shimmering brightly as stood in front of the group. Except, the little ball of electricity didn't bounce back like Ash expected, instead, nailing the psychic type in the stomach and knocking the group of villains off the roof with a small well-placed explosion. Ash blinked stupidly, mimicked by the faces of Jessie, James, and Meowth. We're blasting of Dash. Just like a few days prior, they were swept away in the hulking form of that Beware, a different tune being sung. Bulbasaur blinked, shuffling towards Ash and tugging on his jacket with a vine. They got caught? Beats me. Ash shrugged, before glancing over at Sophocles who was giggling madly with Rotom, Togedemaru cheering as she slammed into Pikachu. Didja see me Pikachu? Didja? Didja? Yeah, I did you just hearui. Ease up Pikachu, Ash snorted before waving to Sophocles and Rotom. Confused Kantonian here? Can you bring some context? Sophocles blinked, grinning brighter as he puffed his chest out. Of course, he drawled slightly, waving to Togedemaru. You see, Togedemaru has lightning rod, drawing all electricity to her. Yes, I know, Ash huffed a bit impatiently, crossing his arms as he quirked a brow. I also know that Wobbuffet having mirror coat, any special attack should have been, mirrored back. See, that's where many foreigners get wrong. Rotom buzzed helpfully, bringing up a random barrage of words and numbers that Ash couldn't bear to hope to understand. Zing Zap, while using a heavy amount of electricity, is actually a physical move, negating the effects of mirror coat entirely. Ash blinked slowly, as did his non-local Pokemon. What? It's a common misconception that even Alolan had to go over. Sophocles hopped in to explain. Zing Zap uses the user's body to inflict the damage similar to a tackle or even a takedown, honestly, breaking through the coat of a mirror move. The user also coats themselves in electricity, but think of it as an access boost rather than the main sender of it. It'd be similar to a volt tackle or a wild charge. But without any drawbacks. Ash hummed, eyebrows darting up in surprise. Yup. Sophocles grinned, proudly planting his hands on his hips. And with the added bonus of Pikachu's electricity dash. It'd be twice as powerful as normal. Rotom finished off with a series of happy beeps. Ash let out a laugh, partly of surprise but mostly of pure relief. Looks like Alolan had about as much of Ash's crazy energy, he really hoped they could match up with him. That was awesome. Ash grinned, causing the ginger to blush as he ruffled his hair. Come on, why don't we try to fix the electricity, then you can tell me all about your training with Togedemaru, maybe I can add something here or there. Really? Sophocles blinked. You mean it? Yeah. He nodded, his grin still wide. Maybe we can test out Togedemaru's electrical output with Pikachu feeding into her? Yeah. An hour later the guard was thanking them profusely, offering a treat on him. It didn't take long for Ash and Sophocles to wait in the fountain area eating ice cream, a phone number tucked away safely in his pocket. If you decide to text him, make sure you guys go to Mallow's restaurant, Sophocles mentioned offhandedly, munching on his cone. It's a great place for dinner. Ash blinked slowly, tilting his head as his Pokemon snickered. What do you mean? Sophocles blinked, barely missing Kukui as he walked towards them, a wry grin settling onto his face. Oh, nothing. He sang, blinking before waving. Hi, Professor. Hello, Sophocles. Kukui smiled, glancing at Ash. Did shopping go well? We got trapped, Rotom shrugged, zooming forward. Would you like to see the footage? What, Ash? It's a long story, Professor, Ash added in sighing, before smiling at Kukui sheepishly. So, take out? The following Monday was an odd routine for Ash. He had gotten used to the roof of the hotel he was in, that waking up to an actual wooden ceiling with a glass window just above his head, sort of, creeped him out. Okay, really, freaked him out. The sky was barely waking up, a dark smattering of purple barely starting to tinge pink as Ash laid beneath the closed window with a gasping breath, shuddering heavily before Pikachu's warm electricity crackled against his skin. Alive, well, and still in one piece. Thanks, bud, Ash murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to his partner's forehead. He hadn't meant to wake up this early. There were very few times when he did. He couldn't wake up Rotom, the small device insisting on a full 8-hour charge every night. So what was he to do? We got some time before 7, Ash hummed gently, crawling silently off the loft. Want to go for a walk? Some time outside would be nice, Pikachu yawned, lazily trotting to his side. Food first. Sandwich. Yeah. One of the few things the duo couldn't mess up, honestly. Now both of them were trotting outside the beach area, munching on their sandwich as they took in the gentle sounds of nature and city life waking up. The wind whistled, a gentle tune picking up and entwining around the barest of leaves. It's calm here, Pikachu hummed, glancing at Ash as he tore off a bit of bread. Wanna bet? No, Ash snorted, flicking a piece of lettuce at his friend. I want this place to be trouble-free for as long as possible. As long as we don't die, I'm good. Pikachu huffed, shoveling the last bits of his sandwich into his mouth before pouncing on Ash's shoulder, careful to not get sand on his partner's food. INF Amen. Close your mouth, Ash rolled his eyes, pausing as he heard the sounds of a smaller Pokemon walking around. He was greeted by the sight of a small black kit with red accents. It reminded him of a Glamour but more stout than tall. They looked up at him, yellow eyes gleaming softly as every bit of their features seemed to drag. They mewled, placing shaky paws on the sand, before meowing at him. Where's Rotom when you need him? Ash chuckled, before leaning down, pushing out with his aura to try and get a feel for the cat Pokemon. She wasn't injured, wasn't even all that hungry from the feel of it. Her entire act before was just a ruse from what his aura could make out. But the food wasn't for her, she had a drive behind her actions, and some trepidation from who knows what. Well, he could always get more food back at the house. Hey kid, Pikachu chirped at her. What's your name? She took a second, whether it was to remember how to speak or figure out her plan. It wasn't something that Ash was privy to. Litten, she mewled again, adding a bit more tiredness into her voice. Do you have food? She was nervous, who wouldn't be around a trainer? Hi, Ash answered, passing her, his uneaten half. Go on, take it. She jerked back minutely, hissing in surprise as her fur peeked up. Wide eyes stared at them, glancing at his hands, his waist, Pikachu, his face then back at the sandwich. Her stomach rumbled. Okay, maybe she was a bit hungry. I don't have anything more for you, he frowned. But you can at least take some of this? Satoshi, that's your food, Pikachu scolded playfully. I can share. He stuck his tongue out, pouting when Pikachu snickered loudly. Ahoo, Suyuryi. Litten's ears fell back as she curiously sniffed at the food. Ash felt the spike of caution before he registered the feeling of claws slashing at his hand. He reeled back, mostly from surprise as Litten snagged the sandwich. She meowed victoriously and darted off. Her posture is far more confident and less loose than before. Oh, she would love Snivy. Pikachu snorted, crawling down and giving a hesitant lick to Ash's bleeding wound. You okay? I will be, Ash nodded, standing up and glancing around. Let's head back? If Rotom is up we can ask them what type of Pokemon is a Litten. She smells of cinder. Pikachu rounded back to his shoulder tugging to get him to start moving. Cinder and sickness. Fire and poison? Pikachu shrugged as they got moving, ear flicking momentarily as the waves began to pick up, creating heavier tides. Definitely fire, Pikachu huffed. Your wound tasted of soot. That's why it didn't bleed as much. Ash hummed, quietly opening the door and checking the time. It doesn't feel like it's all the way closed though. Must be a young kit then, Pikachu hummed, pouncing onto the floor and onto a bed the professor had for Pokemon. Could be like Magby's? Too young to control fire? Maybe, Ash hummed, turning a chair to sit down. Let me write down the name before we both forget. Forget what? Ash startled, yelping and twisting around with a fork as his defense, a subtle hint of blue flicking across the metal. Professor Kukui stood there with a small tilt of his head, loose and calm, and with a smile that didn't feel judgmental or strained. Slowly, Ash forced himself to unwind, shrugging sheepishly as he ducked his head. He deposited the fork back onto the table, ignoring the way the metal was burnt where his palm had laid against it. Nay, oh sorry Professor, Ash cleared his throat, placing a hand behind his neck. I didn't expect you to be up. Don't worry, Kukui waved him off, calmly ruffling his hair as he started up the coffee machine. You didn't wake me, I usually wake up at 6:30 anyway. He moved forward, grabbing 2 mugs and placing them down just beside the coffee machine before opening the fridge and grabbing a carton of eggs out. You said something before I came in, Kukui continued as Ash rolled his shoulders. Something about forgetting? Ash blinked, then clicked his fingers. You're a professor. Kukui paused, giving Ash a strange look as the Kantonian rapidly moved forward. Look at this. He jutted out his hand, pointing at the scratch wound on his hand, but careful not to shove it entirely in his face. There was this Pokemon on the beach. Ash started, only pausing for a second when Kukui grabbed his arm. It seemed all alone, and I caught the name, Litten? But I don't know what it is or what type it is, can you help? Kukui hummed, rubbing his thumb carefully across the wound and smearing some prickles of blood across tanned skin. He tugged Ash towards the sink, making sure to rinse it off carefully. Litten, the fire cat Pokemon, the chosen fire starter here in Alola. He let Ash take his hand back, dragging down napkins to pat the wound clean and adding a little Pikachu printed band-aid. The only one I know who even has a Litten is Kahuna Hala, you may want to ask him. Hala. Ash brought back his hand, stepping back and rubbing the wound absently. Who's he? Think of him as like, a gym leader for Alola. Kukui offered, starting on some scrambled eggs for the lot of the people in the house. Except, he offers trials to see if you're worthy of a Z move. And he gives out the starter Pokemon? Ash blinked. Is it not like that in Kanto? Not usually, Ash shook his head. Most people go to a professor or Professor Oak to get a starter Pokemon or get their starter registered. It's not that too different from here. Kukui offered. But instead of a professor, it's a kahuna, they're the ones more connected to the lands and the spirit of Alola. Not everyone gets a starter Pokemon, most people just get a Pokemon from their family members instead. So he would know more about Litten? He might know more about the Litten that scratched you, Kukui corrected. Why not ask the students? Why would they know? Ash blinked, stepping back when Kukui handed him a plate of eggs. They're the ones that know more about the wild Pokemon around the island. Kukui hummed. Especially the ones that come up to humans. Ash hummed in response, light and snorting when Pikachu snagged a cup of coffee for himself, much to Professor Kukui's horror as he tried to rip the cup away from the electric type's paws. Still, they get to school without much more fanfare than that, walking up the steps in unison as they go over the day's lesson plan. I can't believe Hobbs found it in your garden. It's so cold. Looks like an egg from the farm's dash. I've been trying to get all the stats possible, but nothing. I can't find a single thing about this. I can do it, I know I can. Ash takes a moment to step in, watching the kids all huddle around. An egg? Alola class? Kukui calls out, face dropping to unamused as they all scramble to their seats with peeps. Lily has a bag on her desk. Whatcha got there, Lily? Ash steps forward, none too surprised when Mallow and Lana desperately try to block him from moving closer. Me? Nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. She huffs, but her face is turning pink and she's not making any eye contact. Right, Kukui drawled slowly, before motioning to her desk. Bags on the floor, Lily. Lily froze, eyes darting to the cold floor before she swallowed nervously. With the utmost care that most people use with newly made glass, Lily slotted her bag onto the floor, carefully propping it up. Ash stepped back with a hum as Pikachu and Bulbasaur darted towards the other Pokemon, Eevee only a few paces behind. His eyes dart to Kukui, and with another look, Ash knows they're changing the lesson plan. It's all about egg care now, how to keep it clean, how to make sure it's warm, artificial ways to care for an egg versus the more breeder-centric way, and the pros and cons of both. Both Kukui and Ash pretend not to notice the way Lily's eyes dart to her bag, they pretend the students aren't scribbling everything down with ferocious ferocity. Ash gets an idea, jotting it down on the margins of his paper so he doesn't forget. Professor. Mallow raises her hands before they can continue. How can you tell what Pokemon an egg will hatch into? None of the students are subtle as they perk up and pretend to be lax about it. I'm not sure, the professor says, but Ash knows he's having fun. Ash? And Ash plays the part Kukui wants him to, hemming and hawing and resting his chin on the palm of his right hand, fingers drumming against his top lip. Gee, I dunno, Professor. Ash fakes sincerity as best he can, and it works 'cause the students all sink. I could probably tell, but I'd need to see the egg first. And the students freeze. By Giratina, Ash wanted to laugh so hard and it looked like the professor was 2 seconds away. And slowly, Lily brings up her bag, setting it on the table before unraveling it. It's a pretty white egg, vague splotches of blue peppered across the shell. Ash has no idea what egg it is. Well, Ash drawls, using his aura to feel it out. It's not a Pokemon I know, but it's an ice type at least. The kids clamber excitedly, and Lily hesitantly flaps her hands in excitement as she tries to touch the egg. So how did you find that egg? Kukui hums. Lily flounders, cheeks flushing and blonde hair hiding heavily reddening cheeks. Hobbs found it. She starts with a slow lisp. It was in our backyard for a whole 2 days before he brought it in. Smart man, Ash nodded, but Lily looked so guilty that he had to ask. So why do you have it instead of him? She sunk into her chair and the students scramble for an explanation, but Kukui is focused on Lily's reactions alone. He was going to put it back outside. Lily started, glancing away. If mother found it then, I couldn't leave it out in the cold. So when he put the egg back where he found it, I grabbed some gloves and put them in my bag before I came to school. She did the right thing, Kiawe puffs up his chest in defense. A Pokemon that doesn't come back for an egg means it's been abandoned. Statistically, another Pokemon would have eaten it anyway. Sophocles budges in. We have Salazzles and Salandits here, they would have taken it for a meal. Class, we aren't haranguing you on bringing the egg, Kukui starts, raising his hands. But why would you hide it from us? Well, Lily starts but she's cut off by Mallow. Cause of Ms. Luzaman. Mallow starts, pointing at Lily like she's showing her off. It's time Lily tried to take care of something. And Ms. Luzaman would only give the egg to a breeder. And you have to tell our parents when something goes wrong, Lana added, hands curled into fists with a determined look in her eye. We couldn't let you do that. Having an egg isn't something going wrong. Kukui pointed out. It's a lot of responsibility though. But you taught us so much, the blonde argues, and pulls out a book from the cubby on her desk. And I have a book all about it. I know I can do it. But I can't leave it alone while I'm at school. Learning something is different when it's put into practice. Ash soothes, getting up and walking towards Lily. For example. He grabs her discarded sweater, neatly making a little nest for the egg to lay in and shifting it slightly so it gets a bit of sunlight. Ice-type Pokemon eggs hatch just like any others, they need something soft to be on, and they need sunlight. He hums, pointing at the very tip of the egg. You should try to avoid moving it around because the bio attaches to the top, this little peak right here, and you could accidentally drown the Pokemon. Lily looked horrified but Ash continued on. They have relatively hard shells, and you need to polish them daily. He grabs a handkerchief poking out of her sweater, and shows her the movements. This isn't only to keep them clean, but to cover them in your scent. The more your egg smells like you, the more they associate with you and prevent egg-stealing Pokemon to catch the scent of an egg as much as possible. Most eggs need to be in a room of 75 degrees Fahrenheit and above. Kukui hums, and there's never a guarantee that the egg is fertile. So I could just be holding some dead egg? Lily looked scared, almost close to tears, but Ash patted her reassuringly. That's why it's so hard to be a breeder and care for eggs. He hummed. Not every egg is alive, and not all Pokemon are going to hatch. But finding one all alone in the wild could mean that the parent knew it wouldn't make it. Ash presses his fingers against the shell, pulsing a soft blue as he takes in the barely their heartbeat. This little guy's a fighter so far. He offers Lily a smile. I don't think he'd take too long to hatch now. Probably a week or so really. And the students clamber, pushing Ash back as they all touch and soothe the egg in odd ways. He chuckles as Kukui walks up beside him, smiling when the professor hums in approval. I'm guessing you'd like to show her more? Kukui quirks a brow. Eggs need a positive touch to hatch nice and healthy, Ash shoots back. Once she can touch it, she's going to fly through this. The other kids will get jealous. I have an idea for that. Oh really? Leave it to me, Professor. Ash grins winking, passing him his notes. How's this? Kukui glanced over the notes, reading slowly before grinning. Not bad, not bad. Kukui agreed with a nod, passing him his notebook back. We may need to do it further down in the year. Ash tilted his head curiously, blinking slowly. The kids need to learn a bit of responsibility first, don't you think? Kukui hummed gently, motioning towards the students where Bulbasaur had to knock away a few prying hands save for Lily, scolding them in his native tongue much to their confusion. Yeah, I can see that. Ash eased with a smile, rolling his eyes when Lana seemed determined to argue with the grass type. A few things here and there and then we can do it. For now, I think having Lily touch that egg is the first thing to go for. Definitely. I'll work on it. Ash smiled. By the time school had ended, Ash was gently guiding Lily back to the car, resting his arms protectively over the egg as she babbled about statistics she had definitely either read or learned from a certain ginger-haired boy. Hobbs was looking on, mildly displeased, when Lily stepped in. Though the blonde seemed chastised, she raised her chin very slightly in defiance. This could be good for her. Ash stepped in, glancing at the butler with a smile. To learn responsibility for a Pokemon so young. Hobbs didn't sway, sighing softly as he glanced at Lily. Ms. Luzaman would be very displeased. Lily didn't flinch, but her eyes darted to the floor. This is for school? Her eyes sparkled and she nodded furiously, hands clenched to fists. This is for school. She agreed. Ash felt like he missed something, and glancing at Pikachu and Rotom, it seemed like he wasn't the only one. Come along then. Hobbs ushered them inside the car, turning to round the vehicle and into the driver's side. Ash blinked slowly and glanced at Lily, who was tapping her bag excitedly, a bright smile on her face. Who's Luzaman? Ash asked softly. Would you like me to pull a report on her? Rotom buzzed when Lily glanced away, a flurry of data already brushing down his screen. I can take about 10 minutes to gather all necessary information. Go for it, Rotom. Ash nodded but didn't tear his eyes away from the sullen blonde, even as the car started. Lily? She's my mother. The girl responded semi-bitterly. She works for the Ether Foundation, one that works to help Pokemon. Alarms began to ring in his head, eyes narrowing as he took in Lily's defensive posture. Pikachu's ear twitched, eyes wide and unblinking. I don't like her. Pikachu chirped gently, kneading on Ash's lap restlessly. Something isn't right. Ash had to agree when Lily forcefully calmed down, a smile on her face that didn't match the feeling of her aura. She's so busy being a CEO, she doesn't have much time to be home, so she hired Hobbs to help and care for me. The butler hummed in response and Lily smiled for real. I don't mind, but Mother has a habit of taking care of any Pokemon that need help. If she knew the egg was one we found outside it'd be gone. Ash frowned as he took that into account, already cross-referencing with several people he knew from his past. None of them were particularly positive. Yeah. Lily smiled forlornly. Mother is good at these sort of things, maybe I should . Her expression closed off and shuddered softly as if she heard this argument several times. Well, that's no fun. Ash hummed, leaning back. Sure, it's good to let the professionals do it, but if we don't learn, what's going to happen when all the people who know are gone? He could see Hobbs eye him from the rearview mirror, giving him a brief smile before focusing back on the road. And he turned to watch Lily hum gently. You really think I can do it? She gave him a desperate look, the look of a child just craving positivity. Absolutely, Ash vowed, grinning at her. Let's focus today on trying to touch the egg, then I'll teach you all I know. Right. Lily's hands turned into fists as she wiggled excitedly, already reaching to grab a book. I need to see the composition of an egg to figure out how to touch one. She started to babble a bit, clearly to herself, as she pulled a book from her back, fingers lightly tapping the book and over black ink. It was a good thing because Ash got lost in most of the composition, unsure really what calcium deposits were. Well, at least he knew calcium was in milk. Rotom beeped just as the car pulled over, Lily rushing out of the car and almost demanding, begging, Ash to follow. He chuckled, moving out slowly with a small thanks to Hobbs for the help, listening as Rotom dropped any information he had on this. Luzaman. Luzaman is the CEO of Ether Paradise, a place in which they take injured Pokemon and help them recuperate before releasing them out into the wild. Rotom hummed. Upon further research, it is stated that Luzaman once ran this area with her husband before he tragically disappeared. The search went on for months, with Luzaman being under the main investigation. But nothing came of it. Psychic types were called? Ash blinked, only getting a small beep of confirmation. Luzaman was cleared of any pending charges, as were her workers and children. It is said that she became a little colder during the time of losing her husband only to bounce back. Mr. Ketchum, if you would please follow me, Hobbs called out, leaving the door wide open for Ash to scurry inside, only to stop him seconds from entering in. I apologize, but your Pikachu must stay out, we have a playground just on the side . This is speciesism at its finest. Pikachu scowled, scrambling up to Hobbs's hand and pointing at him. My paws are clean. Check 'em. Oh. Don't worry, Hobbs. Lily waved him off. Pikachu is very respectful of my space. I don't mind at all. He can be a brat sometimes. Ash offered sheepishly, quickly scruffing Pikachu with an unamused glare. He tends to think he has special privileges sometimes. I do. That's why I got the good stuff? Very well. The butler drawled slowly, glancing at Pikachu over his monocle before ushering them in. It didn't take long for Ash to realize that Lily was rich. Granted, he should have really guessed it with her mother being a CEO, but this was on a whole other level than what he was comfortable with. Frankly, he could build a home like this for his mother with an entire wait staff to suit her needs if she wanted, only if that wouldn't have had her call him out for not visiting more. He winced and made a mental note to call said mother soon. This place is huge, Rotom noted, floating towards the open screen doors and glancing outside. It's roughly the size of Kukui's house. And this is just a single room. Mother built this when she was younger. Lily offered. This whole place was supposed to be a sanctuary. What happened? Pikachu blinked, darting to Ash's head to chirp at her. Lily gave a terrified squeak before forcing herself to calm down, registering that Pikachu was nowhere near her at the moment. What happened? Ash repeated, gently, and gave Lily a broad space as she turned to open the glass doors that led to a balcony. It doesn't matter, Lily opted to say. The Pokémon can still come here to have fun and be safe, but they're no longer allowed inside. He glanced at Pikachu as Rotom zoomed out of the open doors, seeming to enjoy the sun and glance at the Pokémon they could see. Don't bring it up, Pikachu warned, and Ash had to agree. Okay, Ash smiled, trying to clap his hands with the cargo in his arms. Let's set up the egg. Before we start with touching therapy. Is this therapy? Lily chittered, clicking her fingers together. Nah, it's just a funny word. Ash brushed off, glancing around. Therapy reminds me of Theraflu, and Theraflu reminds me of cherries, and cherries reminds me of sherry berries, and sherry berries reminds me of the first time me and Pikachu tried them, which was hilarious, and by association, therapy is funny. She blinked slowly, trying to follow his logic along, but seemed fairly lost as Ash set up a small nest on the couch with beams of sunlight, fingers dancing around the eggshell to make sure the Pokémon was okay. It wriggled back uncomfortably, the baby Pokémon unused to any sort of aura. Ash pulled his own back slowly, feeling the Pokémon chase it for a brief moment before ignoring it entirely. Anyway, Lily drawled, seemingly trying to dart away from the therapy conversation. What do we do? Ash glanced at the egg and beckoned her forward, sitting just in front of the couch in a crisscross position. I guess we should talk about why you can't touch the egg. Her face twisted unpleasantly, gently sitting on her knees as Pikachu darted outside with Rotom, aware that they needed Lily to be relatively at ease for this. You said no therapy. She edged warily, picking at the hems of her dress. Yeah, we aren't getting into that story. Ash chuckled, waving a hand. I just want to know what goes through your brain when you try to touch the egg. This feels like therapy. She muttered bitterly, before inhaling sharply. She held her breath for a beat, releasing it in 3 long seconds as she tried to seemingly rationalize what she wanted to say. I don't really know. Lily admitted softly, shifting on the floor to pull her knees close to her chest. I reach for it, and I just feel panic. I can't dash. Will it hurt if you try? Ash edged, tilting his head. It's just an egg, she snarled suddenly, pulling back with a small eep as she glanced away. Ash hummed, glancing at the egg and then back at Lily. Yeah, it is. He agreed softly. I meant like, will it hurt you if you touch it? She turned to look at him, face contorting into an odd framing of several emotions before she glanced at the egg. It won't hurt. She drawled slowly, unwinding. But it scares me, and I don't know why. Ash hummed, pulling back and patting his chin. He had met people afraid of Pokémon, plenty of them, but never so bad as to not want to touch them, let alone a simple egg. This was something else. Well, you said earlier that you could touch it with gloves, right? And you carried it in your backpack the whole time, yeah? Lily blinked, thrown by his turn of conversation. Yeah. He smiled at her, grinning as he clapped his hands together. Perfect. Ash nodded. We can work with that. If you put on some gloves every time you handle the egg, we can do a lot. Maybe we can start with regular gloves and a cloth for the polish, then wind down to cloth gloves for polishing. Oh, I think I have a spare incubator in my pack. I can lend you that too so you can carry around the egg without having to worry too much about accidentally touching it, and it'd be much safer than carrying it in your bag. Wait, that's it? Lily cut him off, eyes wide in disbelief. No, Lily, you're being ridiculous? No, it's just an egg, it's not a Pokémon? No, then maybe you can't handle it? That's it? Yeah? Ash blinked, feeling a surge of anger for the people that made Lily feel this way. I don't know what's wrong, just like you, but that doesn't make you dumb or ridiculous or anything. We just gotta work around it. Even if it is harder in the long run. Lily slumped, her anger disappearing as she glanced away. Ash could feel the prickles of shame tinging her aura, curious as to why she was even feeling that way, to begin with. I'm sorry, she whispered, pressing the palms of her hands onto her eyes. I'm so used to people questioning me, I didn't even think you'd be different. Another surge of anger that was far more murderous this time, before Ash tapped it away, instead, reaching over to pat Lily comfortably. No worries, Ash laughed softly. Come on, let's look for something to help, okay? Then lunch? She asked softly, one hand clutching onto his arm. He grinned, feigning mock disinterest. I mean, if you insist. He drawled, earning a smile. How could I say no? She smiled at him, shakily standing up as she brushed down her dress, moving Ash towards where she had a drawer full of gloves apparently. One, in particular, caught his eye. Those are Litten paws. Lily pointed out. It's for a Halloween costume I had last year. Those might work for the cloth gloves you were talking about. Litten, huh? Ash hummed, placing the gloves down and glancing at Lily. You know anything about a Litten running loose round here?
Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification. So when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.